sticks out, and there's quite a bit of that coming up. Also, the United States and England are back in the news as Vice President J.D. Vance is visiting the island even as we speak with his wife, Usha. And then later, the new Snow White has officially bombed in the box office, a complete disaster. Maybe Disney will start to learn that turning everything woke, just not a very good business strategy, a terrible model. Go woke, go broke. All of that and more on America's Voice Live coming up. We do this today, though. When in doubt, do drugs. I'm joking, of course, but with Big Pharma pushing drugs almost continuously on TV and radio, you'd think that is the answer for just about anything that ails you. Might even get you into your head and tell you have something that you don't. I mean, after all, it's advertising, right? They're there all the time. Boom, boom, boom. According to some, Big Pharma provides, get this, 75% of all the ad revenue for cable TV programming. 75%. What a remarkable number. If you turn on your TV, you're more than likely watching material that's being funded by Big Pharma, either directly or indirectly, both in commercials and, yes, in content, too. And yet, we're the sickest we've ever been here in America. While TV programming in the United States tries to convince the American audience that it needs more drugs, Americans have become about the unhealthiest people on the planet. I mean, look around. Part of the America First agenda is about making America healthy again, and I want to focus on that today because nearly all of us agree MAHA is a very good idea. RFK Jr. promised to advise President Trump against allowing Big Pharma to bankroll television programming. In fact, he wants it to end altogether. Remember when he said this, listen.
One of the things I'm going to advise Donald Trump to do in order to correct the chronic disease epidemic is to ban pharmaceutical advertising on TV. There's only 2 countries in the world that allow pharmaceutical advertising on the airwaves. One of them is New Zealand and the other is us. And we have the highest disease rate and we buy more drugs and they're more expensive than anywhere in the world.
Yeah. The word is that Bobby's pushing for that right now, and I hope he's able to get it done because it matters. Why? Because it does not benefit the American people to have companies that make money off from us being sick all the time, controlling the airwaves and controlling the messages we are bombarded with. The major news corporations are, well, brought to you by Pfizer, they say, and they say it right out loud, and maybe they should be telling the truth, bought and paid for by Pfizer to tell us what they want us to say and hear. I mean, are we really supposed to trust what they say to us anymore? Be honest here. We all saw how that played out during the pandemic, of course. We were told to stay inside our homes, wear masks, take drugs, get injected over and over and over again with experimental vaccines. In fact, I was on the phone today. The on-hold music for a pharmacy. Don't forget to get your latest COVID update. Really? Today, 2025. And then they attacked us for using things like ivermectin, which actually was shown to help against the virus because that wasn't something they could make money from. Why? Because ivermectin is cheap. And by the way, there is no doubt it took me from being very sick with COVID to almost symptom-free in half a day. If you've heard my story, there it is again. The bottom line is this. We need to kick Big Pharma out of television, stop them from advertising their drugs and planting the seeds that all of us need to be on them. Need to stop it now. Obviously, its influence extends beyond the television. RFK Jr. had the balls to call out Bernie Sanders to his face on accepting big money from Big Pharma during his confirmation hearing. Oh, this was good fun. Listen to this again.
I'm going to make America healthier than other countries in the world right now.
Will you guarantee do what every other major country does? That's a simple question.
And by the way, Bernie, the problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would come. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money
from workers all over this country. Workers,
you were the
not a nickel from corporate PACs.
You were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million. All right, but you have not answered. Last question.
All right. No. Look, if you go back 20 years, it was pretty universal that Bernie was a kook. That was from Democrats and Republicans alike. And by the way, he's never been a Democrat. Why do they continue to embrace his kooky ideas? And you heard the panic there. Bernie wants to split hairs over executives versus workers, but he's not the only one inflating his net worth with pharmaceutical dollars in his pocket. Like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, Congress is full of politicians, full of them, who are taking checks from Big Pharma daily. Making America healthy again is not only about minimizing the influence of drugs and drug companies, but focusing on the basics again, like nutrition and exercise. What a novel idea. But it seems the big food companies are poisoning us and lying about that, too. I mean, just look at the girth of the nation. You've been out recently, right? Look at the girth of these people. And the FDA isn't doing much to protect us from those lies either. Not according to RFK Jr. anyway. Here he is.
Well, one of the things that we're doing is we've launched a review of the GRAS standards, and we're going to get rid of the GRAS standards for most products. The GRAS standards is a standard that was adopted in 1958. It was adopted because when FDA was created to regulate food, there were foods that were generally recognized as safe, GRAS, generally recognized as safe, like flour, like dairy, like eggs. And they didn't want to make companies test those products, so they created that designation. That designation was expanded by an industry that began taking advantage of it so that any new chemical that they want to add to our food is generally recognized as safe and gets no review. That's why we have 10,000 ingredients in our food in this country. In Europe, they only have 400. And we have the worst chronic disease burden of any country in the world. So we are going to get rid of the GRAS standards for new products. We're going to go back and review all of these old ingredients to make sure that they are safe. And we're going to encourage these companies to get rid of them as quickly as possible.
10,000 ingredients compared to 400. Remarkable, right? These things include food dyes, which we know are not safe, many of them, and other additives that allow companies to cut corners and make junk food addicting, basically. I mean, make them pretty and salty and sweet. Sell them all. Speaking of junk food, Bobby also proposed cutting candy and soda out of the $113 billion SNAP food program that is, not $13 billion, $113 billion program. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, of course, and it's a safety net for families who can't put food on their own tables for whatever reason. We support that. But it doesn't seem to focus on actual nutrition. There's the part we don't support. If there are children in America not getting enough to eat, the last thing they need is a Hershey bar and a Mountain Dew, which leads to Mountain Dew mouth, by the way, according to J.D. Vance and a million other folks. See it for yourself what Mountain Dew mouth looks like. Go online, look this up. If you don't know, look at it and understand what we're talking about. Listen here.
My 18th birthday is in 8 days, and people look down upon me because of my teeth. As I was a kid, I was never worried about my teeth, and I would just take a pop everywhere I went, and I always had one in my hand.
And how old do you reckon you were when you had your first Mountain Dew? Like how old?
I would probably say 2 or 3.
2 or 3. Mountain Dew, 2 or 3 years of age. I would term that child abuse, but I'm just a dad. What about freedom of choice, Gruber? This, after all, is America. Well, let's be clear. SNAP recipients always have the choice to spend their own money on whatever they choose. This isn't their money. This is your money and mine. And we didn't get the choice to fund the program, but we should be able to put some guidelines on what it's used for, don't you think? Look, your money you choose. My money, we choose. SNAP is an issue of survival. No one needs candy and soda to survive. They do need teeth, however. Those come in handy. $7 billion worth of food stamps are spent on heavily sugared drinks every year. $7 billion. And how much is that? Well, let me give you an idea. That's 20 to 30 billion servings of soda a year that we give to the poor. And when one Mountain Dew has 45 grams of sugar or more, depending on the size, well, that leads to things a lot worse than your teeth rotting out of your head. Studies show that SNAP recipients have high rates of heart disease, diabetes, obesity, early death compared to the rest of the population. Imagine that. All that sugar and all those additives and all those colorings have bad outcomes. If our public dollars are going to go somewhere, it should be for the health and not the harm, because look, you end up in a long-term cycle of sickness, which means you're on the drugs and in the hospital and in the doctor's office. Oh, those big pharma companies like that makes sense, right? Well, it's not just big pharma seeking to control our health with big money. It's these junk food companies, too. We saw it firsthand this week. A number of so-called conservative influencers were exposed for taking money to trash talk the SNAP proposal of eliminating soda. The talking points were identical. Claims that the proposal to cut soda out of SNAP was an attack on their freedom of choice. Many of them used the talking point on Donald Trump's Diet Coke button in the Oval Office as an appeal to MAGA voters. But not a single one of them disclosed that they were paid to post these viewpoints, except, well, for me, that's dishonest. It's a no sale. I didn't take the money. Riley Gaines didn't take the money either, by the way. We also need to get junk food out of our schools. Our taxpayer dollars are subsidizing meals in schools that are doing the opposite of helping feeding the next generation. How do you expect these kids to focus on reading and writing when they're getting pumped full of Fruit Loops, chocolate milk, and yes, Mountain Dew and Coca-Cola at 8 o'clock in the morning? I mean, you know what kids look like when they're on sugar, right? I know what mine look like. President Trump is dismantling the Department of Education and putting Health and Human Resources and RFK Jr. in charge of nutrition programs in schools. Another win for Maha. Where will his Health and Human Services find the time and resources to take on school nutrition? Well, by freeing up the waste that exists in the department with the help of DOGE. More money found can go to the right places. That's right, DOGE is working hand in hand with Maha by helping them root out redundancies. Listen to RFK explain it here.
I'm very grateful to you and very grateful for the partnership with DOGE and with Elon. We've identified extraordinary waste in my department and HHS. The expenditures, the budget of HHS during the Biden administration went up by 38%. The employees went up by 17%, and healthcare went down. We have 40 comms departments. We have 40 procurement departments. We have 40 IT departments, and we have 40 procurement, HR, none of them talking to each other. We are, with Elon's help, eliminating the redundancies. We are streamlining our department. We're going to go back to providing gold standard science. We're going to get the money to the scientists and to the patients rather than to the administrators and to the bureaucrats. And we're going to restore gold standard science, and we're going to make America healthy again.
That's what I voted for. I want my tax dollars going toward cancer research, not toward manipulation campaigns to sell me the 17th Pfizer jab and washing it down with Mountain Dew. This is all about putting America first by putting Americans' health first. And that's why I love the Make America Healthy Again agenda. It'll take time, but I think these moves will pay dividends for Americans' health into the future. And isn't that the most important thing? Make sure our kids don't face a lifetime of obesity and diabetes and high blood pressure and fatty liver and all those terrible things. Let's put our kids first when we make America healthy again. How about that for an idea on a Friday? Coming up after the break, liberal will imposing judges continue to be an issue for President Trump and Americans altogether. We'll talk about it up next. Don't go anywhere. beautiful Friday for you. Yesterday afternoon, I had the opportunity to sit down and speak with Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. You know him, of course. We covered a whole variety of issues, including the will of these judges being imposed upon the nation, the Signal scandal, and much more. Listen. Joining me now is Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio's 4th Congressional District. You know him because he speaks his mind and he tells the truth, and he brings this thing we call common sense to the conversation. Congressman, nice to see you again. Thank you for taking the time.
Steve, good to be with you. Thanks for what you're doing.
So there's a lot going on. I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with lawfare. Let's talk about this. District judges, federal district judges, which are basically local judges, imposing their will across this nation. I don't believe that's the way Article 2 powers are supposed to be restricted. I don't think I'm wrong on this, and yet I keep seeing this happen over and over again. We're being blocked, we being the American people, are being blocked by way of Donald Trump sending Transgender, MS-13, and other violent gangbangers out of this country, and a judge saying, well, you can't do that. What do you make of all this?
No, I think first there's just a common sense. You look at this judge, like the judge said, turn the plane around, bring the bad guys back here. I mean, these are bad guys who are in the country illegally, and they're part of this international gang, this gang that's notorious for doing terrible things. And they're not Boy Scouts, they're bad guys. And the judge said, bring them back here. Made no sense. And then, as you point out, I think the president is on strong constitutional grounds, strong statutory grounds. The Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, first sentence says that executive power is vested in a president, not some unelected district judge. And then second, the statute from way back when, the Alien Enemies Act, says if it's a predatory incursion, well, that's certainly what that is. They're here illegally. They're bad guys. Again, they're not Boy Scouts. You can do this. So I think he's on strong statutory ground. But you got this judge who thinks he's smarter than the 77 million Americans who elected President Trump.
And yet I just saw a panel decide that he can remain, his order stays for now. They did not overrule him, which is surprising to me. So it's going to be on to the Supreme Court. And I've got to be honest with you, Congressman. I'm a little concerned by that when I see John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett waffling on things that should be pretty clear, I would think, to a conservative jurist. I don't have a lot of confidence that it's going to go the right way. Look, at what point do these judges think they can say, well, don't arrest this person? We just saw an MS-13 leader in this country brought down by Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and the forces. I mean, where does this end?
Well, I think the Supreme Court may, in fact, rule the right way. We'll have to see. I do know on a slightly different issue, these injunctions where you will have a district judge issue an injunction and it'll apply nationwide. We actually think that should change. We've got legislation we passed out of the committee 3 weeks ago, which will address that. It's going to be on the floor next week. So we think that'll be helpful. And some of the judges, including liberals on the Supreme Court, have raised concerns about a district judge issuing an injunction which has national implications, applies nationally versus just in that jurisdiction, just to the parties of the case. So we think that we can do well in the Supreme Court. We want to pass this legislation, which deals with a slightly different issue than Judge Boasberg. His was a temporary restraining order or an order. But all of this is a concern, and we're having hearings on this next week in our committee, and also Senator Grassley plans to have hearings in the Senate Judiciary Committee as well. And
I think Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth raised a great point, which is this. At what point do these judges think they can dictate movements on a battlefield? How far do they think they can inject themselves in? And look, Chuck Schumer made this clear. He made this clear that there were a couple of hundred judges added at the late hour of the Biden administration to do exactly what we're seeing here. It's judicial interference, and it's by design, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why we should look at the legislative levers we have to impact this. We should look at the appropriations process, which is the real power Congress has. And, of course, we should do the oversight, which is the hearings that we plan to start next week.
Yeah, all right. So let me ask you about something else. Talking about all these things. Now there's been a lawsuit filed in this whole SignalGate issue, whatever this is. I don't think it's a scandal. I've read the text messages. I think we all have at this point. I don't see who, where, how, why, or when. I don't see any of that. I see a conversation of pros and cons about military operations, and not just with the Houthis, but with Gaza and other places. I don't know how this Jeffrey Goldberg got put into this conversation. That's a question that does need to be answered. But there's nothing here that violated national security or anything else that I can see. Do you see something else?
Well, and then there's also what happened. Bad guys got killed. The operation was a success. No Americans were hurt. No Americans were injured, as far as I know. And they've told us that it wasn't classified information conveyed in the conversation. So let's move forward and let's get on with doing what President Trump campaigned to do. I mean, I think that's the takeaway the vast majority of the American people have. So let's stay focused on that.
And so where do you think this goes? There was a lawsuit just filed. I couldn't believe it, Congressman. A lawsuit filed against Pete Hegseth and Mike Walz and Tulsi Gabbard and all of these folks based on what I'm not sure. But it's another meddlesome lawsuit. And is this where we are in America? Look, they couldn't beat Donald Trump politically. They couldn't beat him legally, obviously, because he's been reelected. His agenda, he's been whooping their tails for about 65 days now with everything he's doing, right? I mean, he's winning, so they have to have some distraction, and the only thing they have left are distractions and lawfare. But where does that leave us?
And you know, the judge who gets assigned the case randomly selected is Judge Boasberg, the same judge who said turn the plane around, bring him back. I mean, Shazam, it just happened to be him. So maybe that's right, but you kind of got to wonder how he's the one who winds up getting the case. Yeah, again, and the guy who brought the action with American oversight, Norm Eisen, he's the guy the Democrats a few years ago brought into the committee, to the Judiciary Committee, to help with their impeachment of President Trump. So this looks pretty choreographed. We'll just have to see how it shakes out.
It does look pretty choreographed and pretty. It's pretty well wrong. So they're going after Elon Musk. And here's something I need to ask you about. Elon Musk, you see all of these attacks on Tesla dealerships and attacks on people's personal vehicles. I haven't heard one Democrat say, hey, this is wrong, stop it. I mean, people bought a car to take their kids to school or go to work or whatever, and they're being attacked. I mean, thousands of dollars worth of damage. What's wrong with these people?
Well, I like to say now, I think the divide in America is common sense versus crazy. We're the party of common sense, as President Trump always says. They're the party who's embraced all kinds of crazy ideas. They're the party that says, you know, it's let's defund the police. It's crazy to defund the police. It's crazy not to have a border. It's crazy to have men compete against women in sports. It's crazy to have to encourage the firebombing of Teslas, for goodness sake. It's crazy for a judge to say, turn the plane around, bring the bad guys back here, and you can just keep going. If they're going to embrace crazy concepts, we'll stick with common sense. I think we'll win elections.
Well, you know, they do have Jasmine Crockett as the leader of their party, apparently. So that's pretty well out there. Let me ask you a couple more things here. You were at the wrestling championships here a few days ago. You see the president, how he's received by common sense, middle America. I mean, what did you make of that?
Well, when he walked in, there were 18,000 wrestling fans. I think all 18,000 were an amazing ovation he got. And then the key match, of course, was this heavyweight match where the young man from Oklahoma State, who had done his 4 years at the Air Force Academy, had an extra year, that went to Oklahoma State because he wanted to be a national champion. He ends up beating the reigning Olympic champ, the toughest guy on the planet. No way he's supposed to win. And I told the president, I said, that young man doesn't win if you're not there. Because he had said something like, you know, his commander-in-chief, his boss was going to be there. And I think that was sort of the added energy and emotion that sometimes we see in sports, where he wrestled a match that was just unbelievable. And so that was sort of the highlight of the evening. And then for him to salute the president, it was a great night for wrestling fans, a great night for America when you see this young man pull off this upsets, which, you know, the kind of thing that we get in sports sometimes. A lot of fun.
It was special. And look, it's the same attitude Donald Trump brings to this country. Congressman Jim Jordan from the great state of Ohio, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time today. Thank you. Take care. What a great guy. What a great patriot. And I appreciate Jim Jordan, a wrestler himself. Of course, you probably knew that. When we come back, Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha are in Greenland today, visiting a U.S. Space Force base in the northern part of the island, getting briefed on national security, and, of course, continuing to set the stage for American control there. We'll be right back. and the Second Lady, Usha Vance, are in Greenland today, visiting the Pudufik Space Force base, where they will receive a briefing on Arctic security issues, as well as discuss the ongoing controversies surrounding Greenland's secession from Denmark, what it all means. Of course, this comes at a crucial time because President Trump has his eye on Greenland because of many reasons, not only because of its natural resources, but because it would strengthen America's national security and the security of all Western nations, in fact. Here with me to discuss this ongoing issues is the founder and CEO of Greenmet, Drew Horn. Drew, nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to talk about this.
Well, let's look at this. Look, Greenland has been, according to the people in Greenland, not well treated by Denmark for many, many years. Look, Greenland was a critical place where we lost a number of soldiers and sailors when they went up there in World War II. One of the ships got sunk on the way. A lot of people died then, and we defended it. And now we have a base there, as we just mentioned. Look, maybe Greenland doesn't want to be a state. Maybe they don't want to be a territory. But what about a protectorate? Is that a word that they can be more satisfied with? Because, look, they're on our side of the planet. They are critical to our national security first and foremost. And if we tick off every EU nation, I don't much care, as long as we're protected. Where would you like to dive in?
Well, I think you make some great points. And let's just start with first things first, right? They're a neighbor, they're a part of North America, and they want to be independent, right? There's just no reason that Europeans should be interfering with that. The Danes and the European influence there just has a really nasty, negative background. I mean, it's essentially very similar to what apartheid was in South Africa. There was forced sterilization. There was all sorts of terrible things done to the native Greenlanders over the years. And they remember that, and they want to be free. They want to be independent. They want to be aligned with the United States. And right now what we're seeing is just a massive manipulation campaign right now by Danish interests to try and manipulate this story so that they don't lose relevance by allowing the Greenlanders to become independent.
So what's the first step then? I mean, there's what, about 60,000 people living on the island, Greenlandiers, I suppose, or whatever you like to speak of them as. Do they vote for independence? Because it's pretty clear. The right-leaning parties of that island won the election. Everybody called it a surprise. I was not surprised. They see a different day ahead. They kicked out the progressives, which has happened in Italy and Argentina and El Salvador and the United States of America. It is a global trend to kick out the progressives and go with a more conservative approach. Is that the first step? Vote out Danish rule?
That I believe is what they're focusing on. I mean, they've got a lot going on right now. And I think, yes, the new leadership really does demonstrate a need for, I would say, business, independence, and alignment with North America and the United States. And so they definitely want independence. The question is how and when. And I think we're here to support however that happens, and then look to build a continued stronger relationship with Greenland as a part of that, right? I mean, the reality is we provide the defense for Greenland, much like we do most of North America and Europe for that matter. But they know that, and they want us to build up more on the base there. They want us to invest more. They want us to build infrastructure, minerals, energy projects, you name it. So I think, you're going to see independence coming to Greenland because they've wanted it overwhelmingly, and there's no one that's even trying to deny that.
Yeah, and we're going to partner with them. Anybody that doesn't think that Donald Trump's going to win this discussion, I think is sadly mistaken. Drew, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, we already are partnered with them. I mean, we have a massive base there. They love it. They want more of it. I mean, we need to allow them and encourage them to grow the way they want to, and that's their right. And so they want to be friends of the United States. Why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't they? All right, sir, thank you so much for being here. Greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, and have a great day.
Break. Well, Snow White did exactly how he thought it would in the box office, a complete face plant. Sorry, Snow White, that's going to leave a mark. We'll talk about it coming up next. You're heartbroken for Disney and the new Snow White remake. It face planted at the old box office. $43 million domestically, $44 million internationally, a total global debut of $87 million, given the film's massive, almost $260 million budget before marketing costs. Yeah, it's trouble for Disney. You know, go woke, go broke. Joining me now to discuss it, TPUSA contributor Morgan McMichael. Look, Morgan, this movie is a complete disaster. I don't care how you look at it, right?
There's no positive way to look at this movie. It's been a disaster ever since Snow White actress Rachel Zegler first went on her press tour. And I honestly think the crazy low box office numbers were to be expected. No one in America asked for this movie. If we wanted to watch Snow White, we'll go back and watch the original. We don't need a woke remake. Everybody wants a princess who has a Prince Charming. So I'm not sure what they were thinking by sending out some super progressive woman on the red carpet to say that, you know, Snow White doesn't need a Prince Charming. I also want to note that Disney lost over $1 billion in the box office for some of their previous releases, including The Marvels and Indiana Jones and Wish. So now they've had a consecutive number of multiple different shows and movies completely tanking. I think it's about time for Disney to come up with a new strategy that includes getting rid of the progressive tones in all of their shows and movies.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing. They're CGI dwarves. The dwarves are fake, Morgan. They can't even have real... I mean, look. What is it? The guy from Game of Thrones, Peter... I can't think of his last name. Anyhow, Dinklage. Fabulous actor. Fabulous. Yes. That guy's awesome. You can't get real actors to do the part. You got to CGI this. No wonder it cost him $260 million, right?
You know, I remember seeing something come across the headlines that actually actors who have dwarfism were very upset at Disney's choice for having CGI dwarves because this created, within the acting world, you know, actors couldn't get those roles. So instead, now jobs for actors who have dwarfism was taken by CGI and AI. I honestly think that aspect of it is pretty sad, especially when there's a lot of actors in Hollywood who can't get jobs. I think this just paints a bigger picture, though, of, you know, Americans don't want to see Disney movies like this. When you go to the movie theater, when you turn on your TV, you don't want to be consumed with progressive wokeness. You instead actually want to be entertained. And I think it's time that Hollywood starts to take a pulse and realize that the American people don't want to watch this garbage anymore.
Well, and here's something else, and I'll give you the last word on this. Hollywood's dying. They don't make movies in Hollywood anymore. They make them in New York and Texas and Arizona, New Mexico, and all over the world because it's cheaper than going to California to make movies. They don't make movies there anymore. So not only did Snow White face plant, Hollywood is face planting. I'll give you the last word.
This is true. Hollywood is face planting. And I think this, you know, the next era of Hollywood films and production when it comes to the entertainment industry, we're going to start seeing a lot more different filmmakers pop up with entertaining things for the American people. And at least that's my hope. I hope that Disney continues to lose money. I hope that millions of people continue to unsubscribe from Disney Plus because no one truly wants to watch the garbage that they're being pushed when it comes to the wokeness.
Absolutely true. Morgan, always nice to see you. I hope you have a great weekend. Enjoy it out there.
Thank you. You too.
All right. So she will not be at the movies, folks. I can assure you of that. All right. Tariff wars, recession fears, stubborn inflation. No wonder gold has been routinely hitting all-time highs in volatile markets like right now. Don't sit on the sidelines with your head in the sand. Take control. Safeguard your savings. That's why so many Americans today are turning to Birch Gold. They've helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into an existing IRA in physical gold. It's time for you to get a hedge against inflation and economic instability with gold. It's time. To learn how to own physical gold in a tax-sheltered account, text America to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free kit. It's no obligation. Again, text America to the number 989898. It took us decades to get into this tangled mess that they're trying to unpack now. And I hope they do. But how long will it take to get out of it, and at what cost is the real question. Text America to 989898. Find out what your options are with Birch Gold. I'll take a break. Don't go anywhere. This is America's Voice Live. Administration has slashed more than $350 million in federal taxpayer funding for controversial research projects, including studies of transgender mice and structural racism. The Department of Health and Human Services cut these National Institutes of Health grants, many of which had been funneled into left-wing ideological programs under the previous administration. One such project had received $735,000 in taxpayer money at Emory University in Atlanta, and they sought to examine the effects of gender-affirming hormone therapy in mice. Study critics argue has little to do with the real world. Joining me now to discuss this, a campus reform reporter and student at the University of Florida, my friend Emily Sturge. Emily, why are we studying transgender mice? Are mice, are they on that track? Are they, preconceived to do that? Do they have that predisposition? I'm confused, Emily. Help me. It's Friday. I need all the help I can get.
What a great question. Well, this story is a victory for campus reform, but an even bigger victory for the American taxpayer who has been forced to foot the bill for these nonsense university studies for far too long. At the Leadership Institute's campus reform, we've been sounding the alarm for months on the billions of dollars being used to fund this DEI, these leftist gender ideology studies like those transgender mice studies on America's university campuses. We were the first to expose some of these studies at campus reform. I myself went through government websites, the National Institutes of Health, and actually found these studies. We exposed them on campusreform.org. So it's thrilling to see that the Department of Health and Human Services has gone ahead and slashed over $350 million worth of funding that was going towards these crazy studies.
But how do we ever get to, so help me here, Emily, because I had this thought about studies like this. You put all this money, whatever it is, $750,000 into this one and $2 million. Are these studies really happening, or is this just a ruse to make money flow somewhere that people put in their pockets? I heard Elon Musk last night talking about DOGE cuts. Say, look, $1 billion in fraud is basically routine. He talked about a survey, an online survey that should have cost $10,000. Cost $1 billion. And so I look at studies like this and think to myself, somebody's putting money in their pocket, or am I just jaded?
It's lots of money. And when money talks, it talks loudly. We saw over $12 million go toward those transgender mice studies, around $9 million that we've reported going to anti-racism studies. And those are really interesting. At one university campus had a study about anti-racist healing in nature. Another university had a study about how racism is actually embedded in the womb and impacts babies in the womb. We've also uncovered other bizarre university studies, and we've suggested that DOGE cut studies like shrimp on treadmills, gambling pigeons, drunken birds, I said shrimp on treadmills, what makes goldfish feel sexy. These are absolutely nonsense university studies.
Wait, stop. I'm sitting here going, how do you put a shrimp on a treadmill? I'm trying to diagram it here. I'm a little confused, Emily. How does that work?
There you go. That is the $1 billion DOGE question. And it's so unfortunate that it took this long. It took an entirely new presidential administration to actually take a look into where this funding is going on America's college campuses, because this has been happening for years and years, and nobody has done anything about it. It's a window inside to the leftist indoctrination happening on America's college campuses. If professors and researchers are okay with spending millions of dollars on these DEI and leftist gender ideology studies, you know that those are the values that they're teaching students. You know that those are the ideas that they are bringing into the classroom. It shows just how far left, just how far leftism has grappled the American education system.
I have some better ideas, because we're talking about Elon Musk here cutting all of this money, and they're thinking they're getting about $5 billion a day that they're identifying in these crazy expenditures. What if we did a study on the woke mind virus, something that Elon talks about quite a bit? What if we did a thing on Trump derangement syndrome? And now I think there's this new condition, Emily, called DOGE derangement syndrome. I mean, anything these people identify as wasteful, they're dictators, they're tyranny, they're awful people. Really? Would you want to protect the money? I'll give you the last word on that. We should study something that really affects people in a negative fashion, which is all of those things. Last word to you.
I think studying Elon derangement syndrome would certainly be a better use of our tax dollars than funding shrimp on treadmills. Maybe that would give us some insight on why the left thinks it's okay to burn down Teslas. It's been really exciting to see DOGE save an estimated $115 billion at this point for the American taxpayer, and the American people certainly approve of this cost-cutting agenda. And just taking a look at these university studies revealed just how insane federal spending got over time, and now we're seeing an administration actually take grip of it and handle that.
Agreed. Emily, always appreciate you being here. I think it's Friday. I'm going to study oysters on a lazy Susan as they rotate past me. I think that's what I'll do today. That'll be my study to help the planet. Emily Sturge, have a wonderful weekend, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me.
There you have it. I always enjoy talking to her. It is a new day in America, by the way, and a new administration in Washington, as you know. A lot of excitement, optimism about the future for most of us anyway. But the reality is this, there is a lot of work to do, especially when it comes to fixing the broken healthcare system. You know that. The truth is that the forces that are responsible for breaking our healthcare system aren't going to slip away easily. No, the challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. It'll take time. So now more than ever, you need to be prepared. And that's where the Wellness Company comes in. It's doctors or medical professionals that you can trust, and their line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Whether it is the medical emergency kit, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, which, by the way, I just bought one. These prescription kits contain an assortment of life-saving medications and guidebooks to assist in the proper use of these medications. From the flu, strep throat, COVID, bird flu, a trip down the street, or a trip around the world, the Wellness Company has a prescription kit designed to keep you and your family safe. Make America healthy again starts at home. Do your part. Protect the health of you and your family. All you have to do is go to twc.health/voice. Do that today in order. twc.health/voice. Use the promo code VOICE. You will save 10%. And I will tell you about the travel kit when I get back from a little excursion I'm going on. But I bought one to go with me for that very reason. When we come back, we'll tell you how wonderful America is. Plus, we'll have answers to the America's Voice question of the day. What are your thoughts on Mark Carney, the new clown in charge of Canada? We'll talk about that next. All right, are you ready to leave this Friday and this week behind with a smile on your face? I know you are. What makes America wonderful? Usually great people like you, the ones that watch this program, and we always want to put a smile on your face before you leave to tell you what is so wonderful about this country. So we start here at Hatboro Horsham High School in Pennsylvania. English teacher Christina Ulmer is showing that even a small act of kindness can have a profound impact. You see, each semester, she hands her students $20 with a very simple but meaningful challenge. Use it to do some good. Do something good for someone else. Ulmer started this tradition in 2018, inspired by personal tragedy. She lost her sister in a car crash. And when a police officer returned her sister's purse, it contained over $100 in tips she had earned that morning. Ulmer immediately knew that money had to be used to spread kindness, turning her grief into a lesson in generosity for her students. That same year, while teaching Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury's 1953 novel about screen-obsessed, disconnected society, Ulmer had an idea. She told her kids that the key to preventing the world from becoming like Fahrenheit 451 was through kindness and human connection. To reinforce this lesson, she launched the $20 challenge, personally funding the initiative by giving each student $20, asking them to perform a random act of kindness. The challenge quickly took on a life of its own. Students embraced the opportunity, using their $20 to help the homeless, support animal shelters, surprise veterans with gifts. One group of girls created a basket of treats for an orphanage, while others found unique ways to brighten the lives of strangers. The movement demonstrated that even a small gesture could inspire a chain reaction of goodwill. And if that doesn't put a smile on your face today, I don't know what will. Do something good today. Open the door. Tell somebody they're doing a good thing today. Tell somebody they're doing a good job. You know how often that needs to happen? More often than it does now. Trust me. Real quickly, a couple of answers to your questions. What are your thoughts on Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's remarks that Canada's relationship with the U.S. is over? Peggy D, I don't care. Yeah, maybe they're just mad because in the middle of Edmonton, there's a statue of Gordie Howe, the greatest hockey player ever, and he played for the Red Wings. Maybe they're mad about that. Anyhow, John of the North writes, my thoughts on the Prime Minister. Oh, Canada, I can't read French. Are you guys kidding? Are you killing me here? The way we used to sing the national anthem in French back in elementary school. Guys, you're killing me here. And Trumpist Girl says he's interim. He is. He won't be there very long. Anyhow, very busy week. Greatly appreciate you being here. Next week, my friends, my colleagues here at Real America's Voice will take over this hour until I return, taking a couple of days off with my children for spring break. So God bless America. I'll see you in a week.
America's Voice family.
Are you on GETTR yet? No?
What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored, and it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the GETTR app right now. It's totally free. It's where I put up exclusively all of my content 24 hours a day. You want to know what Steve Bannon's thinking? Go to GETTR.
That's right. You can follow all of your favorites. Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec.
And so many more.
And the best part?
You can watch Real America's Voice right there on GETTR.
Live.
So join the conversation.
Hop on the GETTR chat room.
Engage with patriots who are just like you.
Good morning, GETTR friends.
We're breaking news, we're delivering the truth, and we're doing it on GETTR
Every single day.
So don't wait. Download the GETTR app now.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
It isn't just an app. It isn't just a social media platform. It's a community.
Well, there it is. There it is. There is a city I can't see because obviously I'm not in the studio. I'm in a remote studio, and this is great. My good friend Mark over here is switching the show. But let's go to the cam, the control room cam. Can we do that? There you are. Control. Mad Dog, give us a wave. There he is. Ben, everyone's there. All the boys are there. So the control room, this is being actually, it's called switched out of West Palm Beach, but we're taping where the camera and lighting background is in Orlando. So we're having a little bit of fun here. All right, folks, welcome back. Happy Friday. Our Rev, Real America's Voice, Chief White House Correspondent Brian Glenn joins us now. Brian, good to have you on, my friend. So Speaker Mike Johnson was on a call this morning on American Sunrise, and he covered a few topics. One of them was why Elise Stefanik's nomination got pulled from being the UN ambassador. Take a listen to the soundbite.
Now, I just want to say this about my dear friend Elise Stefanik. She is a great leader, a devoted patriot. She would have done extraordinary work at the UN, but the president recognized, as we do, that her voice and her vote are really important in the House right now. And so he asked her, and she, really heroically agreed to delay that thing and to stay with us and to continue to work on this in the House. There is no doubt that she's going to be an important voice in all this and an important vote, and I'm glad she's here. The president also said, because he recognizes her great talent, that he's going to have a place for her in the administration as soon as we grow this margin. And so that's an open invitation to her, and I think it's appropriate.
All right, let's bring in Brian. Brian, important that Elise Stefanik did this, and I guess it's, she's really taking one for the team, for the Trump team on this, because she really wanted that position. But as we've been talking about all week, all of a sudden Florida 6 becomes in play, right? So Florida 1, Gates' old seat, likely clearly going to go to Jimmy Petronis, the former Chief Financial Officer of Florida under Ron DeSantis. He'll probably lock down Gates' seat. But Florida 6, which is Walz' seat, all of a sudden is now in play. So Trump says, hey, Elise, I need that seat in New York because it'll likely go away. So really, team player, what the voices walking around the White House, what are they saying about this pullback?
Yeah. Eric, I was thinking right after inauguration when Trump started kind of plucking really great Republicans out of our conference. That's the bad news, is we've got a lot of talented people to choose from. But the other bad news is it also brings down our majority a little bit. So when you look at District 6 and Mike Waltz's old district, and you look at who is, I guess, presumably going to take his place if he's elected, that was a heavily Republican district. I think it was a plus 30.
Right.
And the guy now,
for Trump, it was plus 30 for Trump. Right. But it went, it just became a toss up all of a sudden. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, I don't understand it. I don't know. And in all fairness, I don't know Randy Fine. I don't cover that state house in Florida, but I just got a question: was this the right guy? Because obviously, if he was up, if that district is a plus 30 for Trump, I would assume that any Republican, a MAGA Republican, would be able to hold a little bit of that majority, but that has not happened. Last night, they did have a town hall with President Trump and trying to, I guess, boost the numbers on Mr. Fine, but things are not fine in House District 6. And so if that wasn't the story, Eric, I'm wondering if this Elise Stefanik withdrawal would have happened. Because if we knew that Gates' seat is a shoo-in and Waltz's seat was a shoo-in, then, you know, at least Stefanik would go on and be that UN ambassador. It's just, it's a little chaotic right now. But Eric, I got to be honest with you. This is what I was thinking from the very beginning. Like, we barely have a majority in Congress. We can't afford to lose anybody. But
can't. You know
that's the
why?
situation we're in.
Because you lose the House, Trump can be impeached. I mean, it won't go through, obviously, because the Senate would never let it happen. We're not going to lose the Senate. I said, we being Republicans. Right. You lose the House, all of a sudden Trump becomes lame duck. He doesn't get all these policies through that he wants so badly, and he's doing so well with so many people are loving what he's doing so far. You lose a House, everything comes to a grinding halt for the next 2 years, from 26 to 28, and that's a disaster for Trump. That's a disaster. So you're right. Picking Mike Walz and a couple other high-profile true MAGA Congress people is a scary concept. And if we're down to 1 or 2 seats, anything can happen. That, again, remember, everyone comes up for re-election. These are special elections because of Trump pulling them out. But yeah, very, very scary. Here's the other thing, though. Whenever this term is up for Elise Stefanik, whatever, she will be a superstar in MAGA world.
Sure, absolutely. But, I would like to see maybe a pick from another district that would without a doubt provide a better candidate. It's all about choices. It's all about character choices. And like I said, I don't know Mr. Fine. I hope he wins. Of course I hope he wins. But maybe there were some other candidates out there that had a stronger polling amongst that community. I don't know, but we can just hope that when this special election happens.
So what folks aren't understanding, what you don't understand is that they are special elections. And what Governor Hochul in New York said, she gave some indication that she may not put forward a special election, meaning you lose the opportunity for a Republican to get to replace Stefanik in New York. And then if you lose Florida 6, you may be down to 1 or none if someone gets sick or has to leave.
Or
Trump
dies.
Literally,
look what's happened.
Dies. Trump could lose the House and become impeachable next year or next month, for that matter.
Yeah. And if we don't think for a second that they'll do that, Eric, they will do that. I mean, Democrats, look, they still want to take us down. I mean, look at what's happening in the courts right now. That's their goal. And so, like you said, if someone gets sick, if someone dies, if it doesn't have the ability to physically come to Washington and vote, you can't proxy votes. That takes that off the table. You just miss votes. Now, this is a crucial time, and this is not the situation we want to be in, considering what we have to do right now with this agenda. These executive orders only go so far. I wish we had a carrier pigeon that would fly out of the Oval Office with these executive orders and just flutter the way over to the Capitol and land and drop off the executive orders, and then the Speaker to go ahead and draft it up or put it on the floor for a vote and go to the Senate. And I want to get these things into law. That's what I want in a perfect world.
In perfect world, Brian Glenn, I would think you'd want to travel with the vice president this week instead of staying in the White House. He went from Quantico to shoot some really big guns, which we saw the other day, and then today he goes to Greenland. I mean, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Pretty cool travel for the vice president this week. Brian, we're going to go. Great to have you on, and see you again very soon. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Okay, brother. All right, folks. Tampon Tim, this guy will just not go away. And I will tell you the reason why he's called Tampon Tim. The governor of Minnesota says that every one of his public bathrooms, if you're public in a bathroom, the boys' rooms and the girls' rooms have to have tampon dispensers. And so he became known as Tampon Tim. Even if the school didn't want to do it, you want funding from the state, you got to have tampons in the boys' rooms. He still doesn't get it, and he probably never will. Take a listen.
That our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on DEI, and we let them define what woke is. We got ourselves in this mess because we weren't bold enough to stand up and say, you damn right we're proud of these policies. We're going to put them in, and we're going to execute them. And so...
First of all, can anyone be more unlikable than Tim Walz? I don't think so. I think Kamala Harris made a huge mistake picking him as her vice president. But whatever. The point is, no, dummy, you got into the mess you're in, getting slaughtered and having the lowest approval rate in modern history for Democrats because of those policies. Don't you think, Timmy, that moms and dads were sick of their kids coming home from school, 5 years old, 7 years old, and being told that their teacher is teaching them about transsexuality and gender dysphoria? Do you think that the American public isn't sick of that and wasn't sick of that? And moms and these drag shows and parades and downtown of Main Street, USA, with dudes with things hanging out, with little kids watching? We were sick of it. Tim, you're an idiot. You want to keep that? Fine. Keep going like that. In fact, I hope you run for president in 2028. It'll be just fun to see you get an absolute zero. I'm in O-Town, Orlando. That's how many votes Tampon Tim will get if he runs for president. And he's clearly trying to do something like that. You don't do a speech like he just threw out there unless you have some sort of thought that you're going to win a higher office, a national office. Good luck with that, Timmy. Another Dem that simply doesn't get it would be State Representative Christine Reeves of the state of Washington. She just compared not wanting men in women's sports, dudes in women's sports, which is now a law, federal law, thanks to Trump. Well, she compared that to not allowing black athletes to compete professionally back in the day. Listen to this moronic quote.
I recall a time in our country's history, not that long ago, given that my grandmother just passed away, where people like my grandfather were told that they could not participate in sporting activities because he was a black man. I feel compelled this morning, Madam Speaker, to encourage us to vote no on this amendment, to stop repeating the disingenuous arguments that other humans in our society, rather than embracing inclusion and encouraging folks to evolve as the humans that we are, to be more.
No, State Representative Reeves, it's nothing to do with that. It's our women are being hurt by trans athletes. Men are hurting them. They're beating the living daylights out of them on the fields, in the swimming pools, because they're bigger and they're stronger. It's a fact. Sorry, it's a literal fact. Men's muscle mass is multiples of women's in their body. Our bone density is stronger than women's bone density. It's just a fact. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin. Our northern neighbors, Canadians, are talking themselves into quite a bit of bravado and maybe trouble. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is just begging to find out, if you know what I mean.
But I can assure you one thing, we're going to make sure that we inflict as much pain as possible to the American people without inflicting pain on the Canadian population. And
Mad Dog, voice of God, control room camera, please. Voice of God, Mad Dog, you there?
Yes,
Did
sir.
you hear what he said? He said, without inflicting pain. Without. He wants to inflict pain on Americans, Mad Dog, without inflicting pain on the Canadians. What's up with that?
I don't know. Without.
Good commentary. I listened to this weird, gross, perverted take from a pair of lefty lunatics who were actually advocating for biological dudes in women's locker rooms. Listen.
The locker room at a gym, you've got people walking around naked. And if you have women who say, listen, I do not want to be walking around naked with a person, however he or she identifies, who's got male equipment, right? I just don't want that in my locker room.
I got to tell you, Sam, there's a lot of people with male equipment that I don't want to see when I'm in the men's locker room, and I'm a gay man. There's a lot of people with male equipment I'd rather not see. There's a lot of guys with the hair dryer blowing their balls. I'd rather not see that. But that's just life, though.
I'm sorry I had to do that. I'm sorry I had to play that guy, that nut job, no pun intended, Tim Miller, lunatic. Dude, we don't want to see what you do in the men's room. I don't care if you're gay or what. Fine. Libertarian. Don't care. Sleep with who you want to. Doesn't matter. Dress how you want. Keep it away from the kids and keep it out of the damn men's locker room. Can't end the week or the day without a Jasmine Crockett. Well, she ended her week with another miserable quote. She claims to be tired of white tears, which is just an instantly racist dog whistle thing to say. If a white member of Congress said that to a black person in Congress, they would be immediately expelled. But as usual, Jazzy Jasmine Crockett is allowed to say whatever comes to that tiny little mind of hers, this big. Listen to this disgusting statement from America's dumbest Congresswoman.
I am tired of the white tears. Listen, if you are competent, you are not concerned. When I walk into Congress every single day, you know why I don't feel away and why you can't make me doubt who I am? It's because I know that I had to work 10 times as hard as they did just to get into the seat. When you look and you compare me to Marjorie Taylor Greene or me to Lauren Boebert, there is no comparison. And that is the life that we have always lived. So the only people that are crying are the mediocre white boys that have been beaten out by people that historically have had to work so much harder.
Just imagine for one moment that Marjorie Taylor Greene, or Lauren Boebert for that matter, made the same comment about African-American, mediocre African-American congresswoman like Jazzy Jasmine Crockett. They would be probably censored, if not worse. It's ridiculous, folks. Had to leave it there with Jazzy Jasmine. When we come back, 2.5 minutes, we got Ben Bergquam at the border. I'm hoping he's at the border, but Ben's going to tell us what's going on with the border. Back in 2.5. Well, Roswell, New Mexico, the area of Area 51, where all the spooky aliens hang out. And I'm not talking about illegal aliens. I'm talking about the ones from other planets, Roswell, New Mexico. All right, let's turn to our discussion to our border, which is much better now that President Trump's in office, but the cartels are still major players, and Democrat judges are working hard to protect the cartels. Here to tell us the latest is host of RAV's Law and Border, Ben Bergquam. Ben, they tell me you're in your happy place. Tell us where you are, and more importantly, where you're going tomorrow.
Well, really happy place. I just celebrated my 20th anniversary with my wife. We just got back from Europe yesterday, and I have a day in between. I'm heading back to Mexico. I'll be linking up with Oscar Ramirez Sunday, and we'll be doing a week
they needed, but we should have gotten oil in return. Trump is literally, walking the walk now, saying, "Hey, Zelensky, we've given you," he says $300 billion, but that's a huge number. I've heard 180, I've heard 200, whatever. We've given you $300 billion, but you're going to pay us back. That's the first time I've ever heard an American president say, "Hey, we'll help you out, but it's going to cost you too." I love this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because he looks at this, $32 trillion.
Because it's so dangerous right now, in particular for journalists. And then we'll be up on the border in one of the most dangerous cities on the border, just exposing what the cartel is doing. There's a cartel war going on, multiple cartel wars going on. It's cartels warring each other as well as warring the government because of the policies President Trump has put in place. But real quick, I want to mention what you said in the intro. What we have at our southern border is the best southern border we've had in decades. But the biggest problem we have right now are two things. We have NGOs that are training illegals on how to break the law and how to stay in this country illegally. And we have judges that are fighting our own ICE and our own immigration policies to get rid of these illegals that are allowing illegals to stay. And that's the biggest problem we have right now. On the south side of the border, and again, you said it, they're directly aiding and abetting the cartels. On the south side of the border, you've got cartels that are fighting over territory, fighting over drug routes, because that gravy train that Joe Biden gave them is being sucked up. And with scarcity comes fights. And that's what we're seeing right now. There's more scarcity than we've seen down there in 4 years. And so the cartel's fighting for every last inch that they can secure.
Fighting for the few areas, fewer and fewer areas that they can traffic their women, their children, and their drugs, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, the drug routes are well established. You've got major routes through the ports of entry. That's where still a majority of drugs come through. But you also have tunnel networks under cities like Juarez into El Paso, by the way, which those tunnels were dug by Hamas and Hezbollah that came over and taught the Sinaloa cartel how to do that. They're still operating in conjunction with those organizations. But you've got those, but you also have major drug trafficking routes that are still operational out in areas like Sasabe, Arizona, in the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation. That's a multinational Indian reservation. So those areas are still battlegrounds for the cartel.
That's
but then you also have the other side
Ben.
of that.
Can I just stop in there for so if they dig under the border, which I've been in those tunnels. There's thousands of them, and they're this big, and they run electricity through them, and sometimes fans through them. And sometimes the fans break and people die in the tunnels. I get. But if they dig through and end up on an Indian reservation, the feds can't bust them there, can they?
Well, Border Patrol operates there, so they can. We still have jurisdiction on the border. But the problem is down there, they don't even need that. It's so open. There's no wall down in the Tohono O'odham Reservation. It's just a chain link fence. Barbed wire fence. So they don't need a tunnel down there. They just simply walk across. In fact, they can drive trucks on the Mexico side. They have a gates that they can just simply drive through. The Indian Reservation has special permissions that they can drive across. It's sovereign land. And so they don't even have to do a border check. They just simply drive from Mexico into the United States.
But a border cop, ICE or CBP could stop an Indian reservation vehicle they suspect of carrying illegals?
Yes. So we still have the operational control on certain aspects of the reservations, but you don't have the security that you have in other parts of the border that are controlled by the United States fully.
Very quickly, Ben, this whole idea of this judge Boasberg stopping Trump's deportation of Tren de la Agua thugs, criminals. How is that playing out on the border with the men and women in law enforcement on the border? Is it demoralizing?
Oh, well, they're just disgusted. These people, they look at this guy like he's a traitor. He's a traitor to our country. He's aiding and abetting cartels and terrorist organizations and criminals. And he's bought and paid for leftist. He's an activist. He's not a judge. He's an activist. And so, until we actually impeach these guys, until we get rid of these guys, until we have some consequences for actions like this judge and multiple others across our country, then we're going to be in trouble. We're not going to be able to do the mass deportations that have to be done to save this country. If we don't have that, 4 years from now, 8 years from now, the masses of illegals that have brought in are simply going to invite more illegals in, and this country is going to be dead. It's national suicide what Joe Biden and Kamala did over the last 4 years. But if we don't get rid of those the pillars, the establishment, parts of the foundation of this nation that are working to undermine this country from within, the deep state, the judges, all these guys, we're still screwed. So that to me has to job number one. Go after the NGOs, go after the judges, allow law enforcement to do their job.
And the scary part of the NGO, Laura Loomer discovered, and we put it on her, she believes it's to be true, and she says she has the receipts that this judge that stopped the deportation flights has a daughter who runs an NGO who was taking literally millions of dollars from USAID for what purpose? To house and protect illegals in the country. I mean, if this isn't the most insane, disgusting conflict of interest the judge has had since Judge Juan Merchan in New York with Trump and his daughter, who worked for the Democrat Party. But it's crazy. The risk that they're putting our folks in at the border and frankly in our cities too. Ben, final thought. And by the way, can you just tell me this? When you go to these dangerous places with the cartels who are warring, do you feel for your own safety? Are you scared? Do you have fear?
It's funny. You're watching some footage right now. This was a shootout in the jungle down in Panama, and we were actually had bullets flying over our head there. And it was against the Gulf Cartel. And I got to tell you, I wasn't afraid. I mean, I probably should have been, but there's a sense that, I don't know, God's angel armies go with me. But there are times, there's no doubt about it. There are places you go where it is a scary place to be. And so obviously I don't want to get shot. So we take as many precautions as we can. But this is the reality of the danger we walk into.
All right, Ben, we're going to leave it right there, and we'll check in with you again. And stay safe, my friend.
God bless you. Will do.
All right, bye. So we'll be back in 2.5 minutes, folks. Laughing because that's Mystic, Connecticut. And I asked Mad Dog in the control room, why do they say Connecticut? Connecticut. Why don't they? That's the way it's spelled, right? Mystic. Never been there. And Mad Dog went to school somewhere near something that sounds like that. Tariff wars, recession fears, and stubborn inflation. No wonder gold has been routinely hitting all-time highs. In fact, over $3,000 an ounce again today. First time in history. In volatile markets like right now, don't sit on the sidelines with your head in the sand. Take control and safeguard your savings. That's why so many Americans today are turning to Birch Gold Group. They've helped tens of thousands convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. It's time for you to hedge against inflation and economic instability with gold. To learn how to own physical gold, when I say physical gold, I mean gold coins and gold bars, the real stuff, folks. You can own it in a tax-sheltered account. Text America to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free, no-obligation info kit. Again, text America to the number 989898. With a A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews, Birch Gold will help you protect your savings with gold. It took us decades to get into the tangled mess we're in, and they're trying to unpack now. How long will it take to get us out of it, and at what cost? Again, text America to 989898 today. Alrighty, folks. Former D.C. U.S. Attorney Joe DeGenova, good friend, joins us now to talk about these Democrat judges, these activist judges who just don't seem to care about American citizens. Joe, thanks for being here, and this Boasberg, this Judge Boasberg, and first of all, the conflict of interest of his daughter running an NGO that takes money from USAID for the purpose of housing and hiding illegals is insane. But I'm now hearing that this same Judge Boasberg has been appointed to oversee a lawsuit against Pete Hegseth, Mike Walz, Tulsi Gabbard, and the folks who were involved in that signal leak a couple weeks ago.
Yes, well, they say that case was assigned to him randomly, but if so, the percentages for that occurring are astronomical because he now has 4 cases involving the Trump administration in major matters. He claims, and the court claims, that it was a random selection. But I must say, people are dubious of that, but unfortunately, there's nothing they can do about it because the Court of Appeals and the other judges have no say in it whatsoever. So we are where we are, and it's pretty pathetic.
Joe, it strikes me that it's going to come down to, for this issue, I'm ready for it to go away. To be honest with you, no one got hurt. Mission was accomplished well. What is classified? I mean, do we know who determines what's classified?
Well, classification is determined by the individual head of the agency. And that's they can classify whatever they want, whatever they want. If they want to call something classified, whatever level, confidential, sensitive, secret, top secret, compartmentalized, they have the power to do that. Judge has no power to intervene and determine what is secret or not secret. That's a pure executive branch function. If Judge Boasberg were to inject himself into that area, he would be truly in bizarre territory. But he's found he seems to want to engage with the administration and to push back against what are clearly legitimate exercises of executive branch power. Judge Boasberg, in the case that's now on appeal involving the expulsion of Tren de Agua people to El Salvador, that is a pure executive branch, foreign policy, military, national security function. Judges have no right whatsoever to interfere in those. And his deciding that there is no war is absolutely ludicrous because, in fact, there is a guerrilla warfare going on between Venezuela and the United States, of which Tren de Agua are the foot soldiers. So we'll see. The Supreme Court's going to get a chance to deal with this. We're capturing people and holding them, and they're being deported by other means. It's just that if you can get them out of the country like this fast, you can deport many, many more, and it's cheaper to do so.
Yeah, the strange timing of all this is Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic, who's the editor, who says he was added to this text thread, knew in advance of the Yemen attacks. Okay, whatever. But he knew 14 days, he knew 2 weeks ago. Attacks happen. He stays quiet until the day before a Senate hearing with Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and Radcliffe. The day before that hearing, he releases this news, knowing very well that those three were going to get grilled. I think Kash stood up for himself very well, and America and Donald Trump. Take a listen to this.
Now that another day has passed, do you believe that it's now time potentially for the FBI to open an investigation into this?
I'm not going to comment on that.
Because you're the director of the FBI, you don't believe it's appropriate to comment on that?
Because there's a process in place, there's an ongoing litigation, and the National Security Council is reviewing this matter. And I'm not going to discuss any open or closed investigations.
That ongoing investigation, literally, the lawsuit happened today or yesterday afternoon, and the idea that you don't have an opinion on this at this point is frustrating to me.
No, it's not. I'm not going to prejudge any matters, and the men and women of the FBI will call the balls and strikes.
Reclaiming my time,
not
sir.
you.
Sir,
And Joe, if you heard her, she said that lawsuit happened today or yesterday. It happened today or yesterday because Jeffrey Goldberg sat on that news that he had those texts until the day before that hearing.
And he probably shared that information with the people who filed the lawsuit. That lawsuit just didn't happen. What I want to know is who had Jeffrey Goldberg in their contacts on their phone? I want to know that because that person needs to be talked to. We got to find out how this happened. This seems so impossible to me that something this serious could have happened by accident. If someone did this and it was in fact an accident, really, there's just no excuse for it. Somebody has to be punished for that.
You know, it could have been a staffer. Sure. The point is, for me, it's not that a reporter or a magazine editor somehow got added. It's the type that Jeffrey Goldberg is. The guy is like,
of course,
so he's a left-wing nut job, but he's got a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. Of all the reporters to be added, it wasn't Sean Hannity or Brett Baer or Tucker Carlson. It was Jeffrey Goldberg, one of the biggest haters of Trump on the planet. Very, very strange. It could have been staffer getting paid off because he knows Mike Walz has Jeffrey Goldberg's contact in his phone. Maybe he's like, hey, I got this. I can do this. You're right. Open an investigation. Final thought, Joe.
Well, the National Security Council is looking into it, but right now it's very difficult to say. Clearly, somebody blew it big time. All I want to know is who had Jeffrey Goldberg on their phone among their contacts. That's what I want to know. Who was that person?
Yeah, I could be wrong, but everything I've read, it was Mike Walz. Not saying he put it into that chat, but I was told that Mike Walz's phone added Jeffrey Goldberg into that Signal chat. So it remains to be seen. But again, folks, I don't know that for sure. Again, we have to be a little careful here because there's too much at stake. Joe DeGenova, love having you on this network. I used to work with Joe on a couple of the other networks. This is the right one, Joe. This is the fun one, my friend.
You got it right. Good to talk to you, Eric.
All right, see you again soon. All right, folks, before we head to break, I just wanted to remind you about I've got a podcast and a YouTube page, which are both updated daily with a bunch of content that is unique from this. And sometimes I use a little bit more, colorful language because I'm allowed to. Rob Sig doesn't like me to do it here, but we have a little fun at the other place. So join us. I hope you come and listen to the show and all the other content, tons of content that we upload there, anywhere, anytime. Be sure to subscribe also. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. We really, really love to have you around. Thank you. So don't miss out. We will be back in 2.5 minutes. All righty. Las Vegas, Nevada, right, Mad Dog? Las Vegas? Yeah. That doesn't look like the Strip. That's not the Strip I know. It's not the Las Vegas Strip I know, Mad Dog. I don't see any buildings. I don't see the wind.
This is out in the desert. It's my personal desert camp.
Desert camp. Got it. Maybe we'll see Ben Berkholm in there somewhere. All right, folks. Every week, these questions build up in my mind as I watch the leftist machine melt down and the Trump derangement syndrome take them to new heights of embarrassment and stupidity. So we're back this Friday with some of my burning questions of the day and the week. And some of these boggle the mind. Here we go. Question of the day. How many times a day do you think Kamala Harris regrets picking this guy?
We see one of the first things they do is try and restrict the vote. This is one of the things, though, that this is going to take power to the streets. And I don't know what the answer is on this, but I've been saying this. I think we need a shadow government, so when all these things come up every single day, we've got an alternate press conference telling the truth about what things are happening, telling what's going on.
So did you hear that? A shadow government. That's what he's saying. This guy's answer to President Trump implementing fair and honest and legal voting laws, like needing to show a government ID to vote. Well, that's somehow a shadow government to Tampon Tim. Saying the loud part out loud as usual. This socialist freak is on tour, folks. Who's he touring? For what? An alternate press conference telling the truth. Man, this guy really was trained by the Chinese. If you look back, he spent a lot of time in China. Looks like Tampon Timmy loves nice long swims in communism during his daily trip to the bathhouse. See what I did there? This guy's really, really clearly on his Trump derangement syndrome tour because he thinks he's some kind of, presidential hopeful in 2028, which is beyond laughable. He even brought another loser, Beto O'Rourke, remember Beto, with him, which is a real low point for this guy. And there have been many low points. Listen.
And to all the young people who are here, I just pause for a moment and look around and look at, I'm especially talking about these old white guys who seem to disappoint us on a regular basis in this country.
Why do Democrats hate white people so much? All white Democrats hate white people so much. Every single time I see this guy's face, I'm reminded of the bullet we dodged by electing Trump. Question of the day. What is Joy Behar smoking?
They also have a tendency to blame the Biden administration. It's like, move on. That ship has sailed. I never remember in my lifetime a sitting president trashing a previous president.
Oh, really? What about this?
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays. I was in that World War I cemetery in France. And the one that one of our colleagues, the former president, didn't want to go and be up there. When the president was asked what he thought had happened, Donald Trump said, and I quote, "There are very fine people on both sides. My God." That's what he said. It sounds like I said this 5 years ago. You'd lock me up. We got to lock him up.
So put a little of that in your pipe and smoke it, Joy Behar. The View is just a never-ending contest of who's more stupid and who can get this show sued for the fastest for telling outright lies. And just to add a little question to this particular question of the day, how many damn times are they going to tell Trump said fine people on both sides lie? Remember that? He didn't say that. He didn't say that. Another hoax. Well, as many times as they lie about that is how many times I'm going to prove them wrong. Roll the clip.
And you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay?
Moving on to the question of the day. Do you see any women or children on this plane? Look at them. Look at these people being deported back to Venezuela. Men, gang members, I suppose, chanting about Tren de Aragua. I see Venezuelan gang members, badass guys, But you know what I don't see? I don't see a woman, and I don't see a child. Do you? So AOC and Selena Gomez can cry their liberal crocodile tears somewhere else. This is what I voted for. This is what more than 77 million Americans voted for. Smiling, grinning invaders singing songs about a violent gang being deported back to their own country and out of ours. Thank you, Trump. And as I've said before, any judge who tries to stop it, un-American. And any American who cries about it can be the next on the list for a flight out. Nothing is stopping you, Rosie O'Donnell. We won't miss you. Question of the day, why would we ever care what Democrats think they know about national security? SignalGate has shown us that we're all capable of making mistakes. Nothing's perfect. This is a massive fight we're in, fighting to save the country and to protect it. And it won't always go exactly as planned, but it's actually hysterical to hear the left pretend to care about the country's security after the clown show of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden, this guy right here, our former defense secretary as well, wearing a visor. The guy who, by the way, vanished for days without telling his boss, the president, or the country he was there, well, you know, to defend. Lloyd Austin went missing on 2 separate occasions. And he also got 13 service members killed, and there was no call for resignations of Lloyd Austin by the left, were there? But the biggest clown of them all, the big guy. I don't know why anyone trusts Democrats when they pontificate about national security, when they put this guy into the highest office in the land. Just a small reminder.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America. Made in America. We are all created equal, endowed by in the image of God, endowed by our Creator to be able to treat it equally throughout our lives. Find answers to the drug problem, to drugs, with the use of drugs for health problems. When I went to Dearborn, driving that, was up there. I don't know, man. I think the press thought I was crazy. We saw new standards. We set new standards. We slashed methane and brought over 100 nations together when I was at the big meeting we had in Europe.
Oh, yeah. We were really safe under that guy. We feel real secure with that guy, commander-in-chief, so to speak. It was Democrats who instilled a mumbling, senile, geriatric hair sniffer crook as the one with his finger on the nuclear button, folks. Can you imagine that? For 4 years, they actively pretended he was mentally competent. And only when it looked like they would lose an election did they acknowledge his true mental state. America was at grave and profound risk for 4 years thanks to the Democrats. Anything they say about national security is laughable. And finally, question of the day. What does the left hope to achieve through their anti-Tesla violence? Seriously. Because every single thing these people say and do against Elon Musk only serves up a glaring example of why they lost in 2024 and why they will continue to lose going forward. Violence, blind hatred for capitalism, but really what do they hope to achieve? Are they sending a message to President Trump? Loud and clear received, but it won't stop him from doing the job at hand, which is saving the country from precisely this kind of BS. They love to have invaders here. They love criminals in our streets. So the absence of all that, are they trying to be the invaders themselves? Are they missing the deported criminals so much that they want to become criminals themselves? Because Tesla is a publicly traded company. When Democrats attack Tesla and Tesla showrooms, they're not actually attacking Elon Musk, idiots. Instead, they're attacking the millions of ordinary Americans who have Tesla stock as part of their investment and retirement accounts. It's pure fascism at its peak, and fascism clearly is what Democrats do best. And by the way, tomorrow, March 29th, is the Democrats' Jasmine Crockett's Day of Rage against Tesla. Anything bad happens, put it right back on them and her. We'll see you back in 2.5. So Mad Dog, you're in the wilderness. You're liking the I'm seeing a lot of wilderness. Vegas, I see a prairie. Where's this one, Dog? Montana?
We have the desk cam up. You're actually on the desk.
Oh, take a look at that. Oh, look at how are you doing this? That's not me though. That's from yesterday. I know what you did there because there's a line through me. Either that or I'm actually behind the screen somehow, and you're playing kabuki theater with the TV. Dog, Mad Dog, you know about the IRS? The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world. And with April 15th fast approaching, it's more aggressive than ever. In 2025, enforcement has ramped up. And if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. The longer you wait, the worse it gets. Ignoring your tax troubles is the worst thing you can do. April 15th marks another tax year that's passed you by. Getting ahead of this now is the smart move, but never, never, never contact the IRS alone. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Why? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which ones to avoid, with proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million. Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters. Stop looking over your shoulder and protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. April 15th, just around the corner. Act now before the IRS acts first. All right, folks, this just in. This happened moments ago. We get the tape. It's called the tape turnaround. The State Department says, oh, actually, this isn't the tape. This isn't the Trump tape. We just heard this, though. State Department is now saying it is officially shuttering USAID. That's amazing. That is huge. USAID is that group that was being used by Democrats and a lot of people as some sort of slush fund, just wasting billions upon billions of taxpayer money. Jeremy Lewin, the agency's new deputy director and former DOGE official, wrote that the State Department intends to assume responsibility for many of the USAID's functions and its ongoing programming. This is huge because a lot of those Democrats were using USAID. Remember Mike Pence? Mike Pence was on the show and said basically USAID was so corrupt that the CIA was using it, but they had to move it out of the CIA because it was too corrupt and they didn't want their hands dirty with it, which is interesting because the State Department moved the CIA out of the State Department because they were too dirty. They didn't want their hands there. So it's multiple levels of dirty, or 2 degrees of dirty separation. But now, maybe now with Elon Musk and Doge, they've been looking into it. Maybe now finally we will get some pulling back of the disgusting waste, fraud, and abuse that USAID has represented for decades, and literally hundreds of billions of dollars in the meantime. Alina Habba sworn in today as interim U.S. Attorney for New Jersey. That happened today. Trump had a great time in the Oval Office. He had a lot of fun with Alina and her husband, and Pam Bondi was there to swear her in. Real nice time for them. How about this? Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. is all about health and wellness. Maha. He was in West Virginia today announcing proposed changes to food dye regulations and the SNAP program, which we talked about yesterday. It was the monologue yesterday. Oh, amazing. Maybe he heard it. I swear to God, I sent it to him. I sent him the monologue. So maybe that's inspired him to talk a little bit about that program today in West Virginia, during which he issued a challenge to West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey. Now, this is kind of funny. Take a look.
I got to know, I said to Dr. Morris, or Governor Morrisey, the first time I saw him, I said, you look like you ate Governor Morrisey. And there was a lot of talk about getting healthy again, and I'm very happy that he's invited me to be his personal trainer. And I am going to put him... I'm going to put him on a really rigorous regimen, and we're going to put him on a carnivore diet. We're going to make him raise your hand if you want Governor Morrisey to do a public weigh-in once a month. And then when he's lost 30 pounds, I'm going to come back to the state and do a celebration in a public weigh-in with him.
And RFK Jr. is talking about Patrick Morrisey, the Republican governor of West Virginia. Give him the business a little bit. I'll tell you what, if you're going to weigh in once a month, I bet you he loses that 30 pounds. Do we have any of that video of this massive Bangkok, Thailand earthquake? There's some pictures floating around. CNN has posted them, so we believe them to be accurate. Buildings with swimming pools on their roofs breaking apart, and swimming pools dropping millions of gallons of water into the streets. Some buildings seem to be falling over as well. 7.7 on the Richter scale, folks. 7.7 is very, very dangerous. Don't know any death tolls. I can't imagine it's 0 right now, but we'll find out as we go. I want you to make sure you have a good weekend. But I do want to remind you one thing about my podcast and my YouTube page, because it's very important. They're both updated daily with a ton of content that's not exactly this content. We do some other things. We let loose a little bit. We show you tons of other content that you can access anytime, anywhere, whenever you want it. So I'm going to ask you to be sure to subscribe. Make sure you subscribe on the YouTube page to that content as well. I'll make sure you have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. But in the meantime, let's really, really think about those people in Bangkok, Thailand, because it's a scary thing that's going on. 7.7 is a massive, massive earthquake, folks. It's going to be really rough over the weekend. We'll keep our eye on that. Have a very good weekend. Have a safe weekend. I'll be back in studio on Monday. Be safe. Take care of yourself. And War Room starts in about 4 or 5 seconds or so. Have a great weekend. Bowling out.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome to the War Room. It's Friday, March 28th in the year of our Lord 2025. It's Natalie G. Winters hosting, not Stephen K. Bannon. Don't worry, he'll be back for the 6 p.m. But I'm honored to be able to bring you guys some exclusive content that we filmed, actually, believe it or not, at the White House in the Eisenhower Executive Office Building. War Room was part of the inaugural podcast row that the White House comms team held. We were among several other outlets: Sage Steele, Jack Posobiec, Viva Frei, The Daily Wire, The Daily Signal, Dr. Drew, some other shows you may have known. We made the cut. We're always honored to be there. I was able to interview a bunch of people that I'm going to be bringing you, like I said, that exclusive content over the next hour. And how you know this event was really successful, not just because of the interviews you're about to see, but the legacy media is melting down over it. They're extremely jealous. So without further ado, Alina Habba will start it off strong. I'm honored to be joined by the one and only May Mailman, the Deputy Assistant to the President and a Senior Policy Strategist. You are also around the first term. You're a Trump OG. You've really been a staunch advocate for all things actual women's rights, sororities. We'll get into all that. But our audience, obviously, Bannon's War Room, we've been on the receiving end of a lot of lawfare stuff. I think our audience would really love your perspective. We focus so much on the resistance, how they're trying to counter President Trump's agenda. It seems like this time around they're focused a lot more on using the courts, using lawfare, and the street protests, but it seems like the TROs, the injunctions, are really their kind of go-to strategy. From your inside perspective, how do you think the White House is really actively engaging and combating a lot of these attacks, and do you think we will be able to prevail over these radical judges?
Yeah, so I think people are going to see a strategy a little bit more clearly in the coming weeks, because we have something like 10 requests before the Supreme Court right now, and kind of depending on how the Supreme Court rules, you know, the administration is going to have to respond. And there is this balance. I think people think of, you know, when a judge tells you to do something, you got to do it because you're a private citizen, and if they say, you know, you go to jail, like, what are you going to do? You got to go to jail. But when you think about constitutional power and the judicial power versus the executive power, it's a little bit of a different question. If a judge tells the president to write an email or something, or to say something, that is completely invasive into the president's authority, his Article 2 authority. And so I think that, what we're really trying to explain to people is that judges have the judicial power, the president has the executive power, and judges do not have the executive power by the Constitution. They just don't have it. And so if they're trying to say, hey, guess what? Your military needs to kind of look like this. This is where you need to put your troops. They need to have this type of haircut. They need to run this type of mile. And definitely they need to be, trans identifying. Then that is going to be invading on the executive's power. So a lot of cases lined up in the Supreme Court. We'll see what the Supreme Court says. But the American public, I think, and Congress really needs to get engaged in ensuring that judges are using their judicial power, this is all it is, this is the judicial power, to decide cases and controversies that are before them. So if you've got a case, you can decide it on the issue that's before you with the parties that are before you. We're seeing judges that are taking, it's a lawsuit against the Department of Labor, and they're like, guess what? All of the government has to comply with this. Like, you said the department, what are you talking about? So really trying to focus on what is the authority of a federal judge, and it's way narrower than a lot of these judges are trying to say.
And it seems like that interplay, all the revisionist history that we're taught aside, is essentially the founding of this country is about, right? They act like it's something so just absolutely wild for you guys to be discussing. I want to get to the congressional component, but I'm just curious your thoughts, the way that the sort of left-wing media, Democratic operatives are smearing you guys always through that sort of authoritarian, dictatorial playbook for wanting to engage and interplay with the courts. Do you think that line of messaging is going to be effective, or do you think that the American people will kind of come to realize what you're saying, which is that this is how it always has been?
We love democracy. We want to give the most power to the people as is humanly possible, because that is what built this country. And so guess what? The people have the power over the executive. You elect the executive. The people have the power over Congress. They write the laws. The people have no power over judges. So the more it becomes judges creating policy, not deciding cases, they can decide cases, but as long as it's judges deciding policy, you know who loses? It's not Trump, it's not Congress, it's the people. It's because now the people have no say, they have no power, there's nothing they can do. The best they could maybe do is maybe ask their representative to impeach. That's no power at all. So if you care about the exact opposite of authoritarianism, if you care about democracy, if you care about having the voice of the people in shaping the policies, then you want Congress and you want the executive to be able to create laws and implement those laws. But that's why I mentioned Congress so many times, is because at the end of the day, our Constitution creates a Supreme Court, but it's up to Congress to create the lower courts, and they can shape what that jurisdiction looks like. So Congress really has a role here to say, this has gotten out of control. You guys are nullifying our laws. We have laws. You're not letting us do them. And Congress can step in and say, we're done with this chaos.
And walk us through what you think that stepping in needs to look like. Obviously, we've had Elon Musk and some of the more hardline Republicans call for impeaching some of these very radical judges. Do you think that is the best route to take? We obviously have a hearing coming next week. I believe Jim Jordan, Speaker Johnson saying that they're looking at all options to go after these radical judges. What do you think is the best path forward? And we also have a very activist grassroots audience. They love to make their phone calls to their representatives. Is there anything that they can be doing, people that you would recommend they call, engage, liaise with, to help you guys sort of bolster what you guys are trying to do here?
Yeah, so I think impeachment needs to obviously always be on the table for when judges are going beyond their judicial power. However, impeachment, like I said, is this imperfect solution because it's one by one, it's slow, and frankly, it's not going to happen. Like, it's just too high of a threshold in the Senate and in the House in order to happen. So what's a solution that's not one by one and that's actually possible? It is the judicial power itself. So these nationwide injunctions, it sounds like this big legal word, and of course your audience knows what it is, but it's before the case is decided. It's like, it's a judge saying, hey, I haven't really decided this case yet, but in the interim, I'm just going to prevent the entire nation from doing the president's policy. that type of action where you haven't decided a case, there's been no trial, there's been no documents, there's been no evidentiary findings, and you're telling the entire executive from coast to coast that they cannot implement the executive's power, that is something that Congress can control. Congress could say, we're no longer doing nationwide injunctions. If a state sues, then yeah, the state can stop the policy in that state. That's basically what happened during the Trump administration, where states would sue against, for example, Biden's illegal Title IX rule, and there was never a nationwide injunction. I was part of a coalition that brought a lawsuit in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, a couple of those southeastern states. And so a judge did issue an injunction, but it was for those states. So you could easily see Congress doing some sort of policy that limits the ability of judges to be able to do these sweeping nationwide things. So anybody on the Judiciary Committee, if you want to make some phone calls, I'd figure out who's on House Judiciary, who's on Senate Judiciary. Do I have a member who's there? Make those phone calls.
And I want to pivot to sort of the, I guess, other side of the lawfare aspect, what President Trump has, I would say, sort of proactively been doing against a lot of these big top-tier law firms that were intimately involved with the Russiagate stuff, the last 4 years of all things lawfare that I'm sure you know all too well. I'm curious, from your perspective, do you think that the revoking of security clearances and government contracts from, I think, probably most notoriously Perkins Coie, we don't like Mark Elias here in the war room, but do you think that that is sort of the extent of where President Trump's, I would say, crusade against these very, very radical, subversive lawfare activists ends? Or do you think that you could potentially see perhaps criminal or otherwise investigations into some of these firms? It seems like our audience is very interested in seeing these people be held to account, those that committed crimes. But where do you think is left to go on that vertical in terms of these law firms?
Yeah, so law firms have a tremendous power in our country that they can use for good or for evil. I mean, they have billions of dollars of client money that they are using to actively harm their clients. They're making their communities less safe. They're making their elections less secure. These are things that actively harm their clients. So I'd love to see clients, frankly, start caring about their law firms acting against their own interests. This, and so as the government, yeah, of course, we're interested in firms that are using their powers to weaponize justice in order to nullify laws, in order to do all these sorts of nefarious activities. But then there are individual actors who have gone further. I mean, there are people who have been engaged in the systematic destruction of election integrity from coast to coast. And so, yeah, that's going to be a longer-term project, I think. But for the short term, for the immediate term, what we need to do is to get law firms to use their power for good. They have so much ability to make our country more just. I mean, that's the job of a lawyer. It's to seek justice and to not have a partisan, weaponized mission, and so we're seeing clients start to want that. But yes, there's definitely longer term interest in some of the individuals that have done great damage to our country.
So when you say those individuals, are you talking particularly in sort of the election? We say integrity, they say that we're being too euphemistic, but that's what it is. In that space, or is it more broadly too, going all the way back to the Russia hoax? Can you shed some insight on that?
Yeah, so I think that we signed a couple of executive orders on day one that I think go a little bit to this, but one of them was the weaponization of government executive order. And what it asked for was a very comprehensive review for the ways in which individuals colluded, oftentimes, with the government in order to deprive Americans of their rights. And so these are people who are going to be inside government, outside of government, but this is something that the Department of Justice, that others throughout government, we also did a censorship one, too, because that's actually just as nefarious. So there are people who are using their power to ends that they should not. But then there's also the censorship where you couldn't even say anything about it. And so where you had the Biden administration colluding with third-party entities to make sure that voices just like yours would not show up on any search results, that people would not be able to see a full spectrum of opinions and to very much violate First Amendment rights of Americans. So there's a lot actually going on, and it's not just going to be an election integrity. It's a full-scale investigation into the weaponization of government, full-scale investigation into censorship, and there's a lot to uncover. There's a lot to talk about, but these things take time, but these are investigations that are 100% ongoing.
And in terms of the kind of post-Trump potential for lawfare, right, 4 years from now, obviously, it's great. These are wonderful 4 years, but the way they've dismissed a lot of these cases, right, without prejudice, they want to reintroduce them. Obviously, they're going to try to go after him. I can only imagine probably every day these people are writing lists of every single thing that he's done. They're getting more and more mad. Do you see a lot of these lawfare efforts as sort of President Trump trying to stop a potential, say, Democratic president or whoever, if they were to take the Senate or whatever, be able to weaponize these forces again, not just against him, but more broadly? But do you see the Democrats wanting to sort of re-up those tactics should they regain power?
It's an interesting thing because, yeah, they wanted to say that their dismissal, they wanted to do it quietly almost, and they definitely wanted to do it before the Trump administration came in because, Lord, God forbid that there be a active investigation that the Trump administration would be honestly able to close. So yes, this was a very targeted effort. And so, have the Democrats changed their mind? Have they decided that they want to pursue even-handed justice? We'll see. But if the law firms are not going to help with this, what we saw with a lot of the Jack Smith investigations is that, for example, Covington was giving $150,000 of pro bono assistance to Jack Smith himself. And the other, a number of law firms who gave lawyers over to the January 6th committee who were giving work product over to Jack Smith. So can you stop crazy people from being crazy? That's a tough question. But can you stop the systemic assistance of law firms to weaponize justice? I hope so. I think in America's heart.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. I'm honored to be joined now by the one and only Alina Habba. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I think the last time we were on War Room together, we were up in Bedminster. They were doing a preview of Sound of Freedom.
Yes.
And I think the story is why the audience loves you so much. I remember, I think you cussed.
I cussed. I was going to say, is that what you're going to say? Because I did it.
But it's because you're so
heated.
passionate. Yes.
I was heated and I cussed.
And you care about actual accountability, not
now
the old.
The next time.
It's okay. It's all good. We're
yes,
real.
I did. You know what? I got so fired up. Bannon got me revved up, and I was
He does have a way with words.
And I cussed.
But I think it's because you care about actual accountability, right?
Also, I'm very authentic.
Strongly worded letters and tweets. People,
don't care.
Old guard Republican. You, I think, represent that new fire-breathing stripe of republicanism that I think this audience loves and cares so much about. So I have some of the topics that our audience cares the most about, and I'd love if you could just sort of give us where you think we stand, where we need to go.
Okay.
DOGE has obviously expressed an interest in wanting to audit Ukraine aid. Keith Kellogg had intimated that process was underway.
Right.
Where do you think we stand on that? Do you think that that's an integral part of negotiations? Do you think we need to see the funds and where they actually went?
I honestly, I don't see it as any different than anything else that they've done. So we've seen aid going through NGOs, going through different tunnels and different avenues to be hidden and buried. This is just another one. There's no question that we have sent a ton of money to Ukraine. And I think it's not so much a political thing or a strategic thing as more of a just consistent ability to cut government waste and fraud, make sure we're spending taxpayer dollars as we should, and clean up the mess so that we can balance our seriously terrible deficit in this country.
And speaking of messes and waste, fraud, and abuse, it seems like Act Blue is something that is also on the forefront of everyone's mind, the sort of smurfing, the weird contributions. You're obviously going to be joining her. I think you've been now obviously announced as the interim U.S. Attorney for New Jersey. Congratulations. But through that vertical, or even sort of the DOJ with what the White House is doing, I know there's been a lot of reporting that you guys are looking into that, but what do you think that will ultimately sort of shape up to be? Are you guys just looking at it? Do you think there could be a criminal investigation?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to that. I can tell you that I'm obviously aware of what Act Blue is, and I think that we have to make sure that there's no illegal activity, again, across the board. I did see that a few people left from Act Blue. And
mass exodus.
There was
no conspiracies, no coincidences.
Right, so we have to look at what happened there. Look, I don't know. I'm not in charge of it. I can tell you that it's concerning. I think that it's not the first or last time we'll hear about it. And I hope that we continue to look into anything that has corruption, that has any sort of ties to any foreign dollars, just not acceptable in this country. And we have to keep our elections and our campaigns honest. As to that, I hope we get to the bottom of it if there is something to get to the bottom of.
And in terms of the election integrity aspect, our War Room audience is obviously on the front lines of that. Scott Pressler's been making a full court press in New Jersey. You're obviously going to be up there. Obviously, politics, campaigns, details aside. But what are you looking on in terms of the election integrity and making sure that elections are free, safe, and secure in the state of New Jersey and across this country?
Well, I read about an indicted individual just this past week when I got put in this role that was taking ballots and was allegedly taking ballots. Let me be a lawyer for a minute. Allegedly taking ballots, although they've been indicted, and writing in names and telling people, and then basically pushing in 2020 election things. That's problematic. I mean, if we don't have election integrity, as the RNC really pushed for in this election, we do not have a country. I mean, the thing that differentiates us from third world countries is that we have fair and free elections. As the president has said, he doesn't believe in having an election that lasts 2 weeks and counting ballots and all that. He thinks everybody should have to go, show ID. You should be an American to be able to vote.
How radical.
Yeah, crazy. But he's just, been very clear on that, and that's because he has dealt with this before. He dealt with it in 2020. He'll deal with it. He dealt with it in 2024, and we made a very big effort to clean up election integrity and make sure that there is no fraud when it comes to our elections. I think that it's important, frankly, for the country in general. I don't see how you could not get behind us making sure that people don't vote multiple times, that they're not getting absentee ballots in one state and another, which I knew I knew people that would call and say. I just got a second ballot to my house in Florida. I just got a second. That's not acceptable. That's not the way we operate. We have to tighten it up. And for New Jersey, I can tell you I'll be looking at the voter rolls and cleaning that up too. We can't have dead people voting.
I know. It's crazy. Or illegals, right?
Crazy idea. Crazy.
It seems like one of the ways that President Trump is going after a lot of the sort of anti-election integrity lawyers like Mark Elias is by stripping the security clearances, the government contracts from firms like Perkins Coie, obviously Covington and Burling. Do you think that that is sort of where the anti-lawfare drive stops, or do you think that these firms?
No, I think it's the financial backers. Mm-hmm. I think that it's the individuals that I could name, but the big mega donors that have spent money in a really unlawful way, funding lawfare and witch hunts, as I know very well, and that has to stop. I mean, there should be some sort of reform towards that end, because you should not be able to go after a political opponent through the court system. That's just not what it's meant to be there for. So I think you follow the money on that. That's really where I believe the problem is. And of course, we have issues with some of these judges, some of these rogue AGs, some of these rogue DAs that are more politically motivated than legally minded. So
when you look post 2028, they've obviously, a lot of the cases, the lawfare against him, they've dismissed without prejudice. They're already talking about probably trying to impeach him. Right? How do you think the administration is working to ensure that once President Trump is no longer president, that we're not going to sort of go back to the third world territory we were in?
Yeah, no, we're making sure of that. Number one, we expect that after seeing what he's done just in a couple months, after 4 years, the American people will yet again vote to keep somebody of this party in place that has the same compass and morals and policies and agendas that we've had. America is definitely stronger very quickly, and we'll see what happens there. But I can tell you that in this administration, that is something that we are 100% worried about, is making sure that the changes that we make are long-lasting, that these aren't temporary fixes, no more Band-Aids. Let's end it. Let's end all the things that America voted to stop, that they were tired of in the last administration. So when we are doing things, when we're writing executive orders and policies, we're not doing them as a temporary fix. We're doing them to really fix the country, frankly, because it was very broken when we came in.
And something that you've tried to overhaul systemically across government, across society, is the issue, obviously, of human trafficking intertwined with illegal immigration.
Near and dear to me since I've
Our audience is obviously very attuned to that. I'm curious your thoughts. Secretary Kristi Noem had talked about how they were getting ready to revoke a lot of the funding from these NGOs that sort of aid and abet the invasion of this country. But do you think that just stripping the funds from some of these organizations is enough, or do you think that our audience should expect, I know they certainly want it, but investigations into a lot of these swampy groups?
I can tell you for New Jersey, if there's any of that, if there's any shelters that are harboring illegal immigrants, they will be investigated. I will not have that in my state, I can tell you that for sure. And, I love Kristi. I think she's doing a stand-up job. I'll be continuing to work with them. I'll be continuing to work with ICE. I'll be with DHS, cleaning up human trafficking. And America, unfortunately, is a very, very, very large human trafficking problem because of the open borders that we had. We have another problem. We have a cyber sex trafficking problem in this country, where it's transnational and going overseas through Skype, through these things. And it's really disturbing. I will expect that anybody who has a crime of moral turpitude, anybody who is a pedophile in the state of New Jersey, I will have no mercy on you. I can tell you that. I will go for maximum penalties all the time. There will be no breaks. And if you are here illegally and you hurt a child, you will be I can tell you'll be visiting Kristi Noem over there where with the rest of the Transgender. Yeah, exactly. But I have no tolerance for that. It's been something I've been very, very passionate about since I've been here, and working with Tom Homan and Kristi Noem and Secretary Kennedy. It's just been great.
And last question, your message to other, say, Democrat state AGs, or the states where they have, 23, the supermajorities that they're shepherding all their resources to go after the mass deportation agenda, to block the... What's your message as a sort of, I think, a representation of how you can use state power to stop illegal immigration potentially?
Well, I would like to understand why they think it's better to keep terrorists And a terrorist, I use that word not just because of the executive order, but because these are people that have come into our country unwelcome. Maybe they were welcomed by Joe Biden, but they are no longer welcome here. That you have come into our country and you have terrorized our people. You are bringing in drugs, you are hurting children, you are raping people, whatever it is that you are doing, you have no place here. So I would just ask when they go to sleep at night how they sleep after knowing that they are trying to get these people back off a plane and into our country. People that look at Laken Riley. I mean, it was the first bill the president passed for a reason. I don't understand what conscience what God you pray to, that you find it okay to encourage criminal behavior in this country. I don't know if they don't have children. I don't understand. Because
Probably not.
I think about my children. When I took this job, I thought about my children.
Last question, only because you brought up terrorism. Obviously, the attacks on Tesla being classified as domestic terrorism, sort of twofold. One, there's been a lot of reporting. We've done a lot of it here in the War Room, how a lot of these people who are so anti-Tesla and protesting Elon Musk, a lot of it is funded by that same sort of dark money left-wing groups that you're talking about.
It's not that dark, right? We know where the money
is
from.
Very
right?
obvious.
Yeah.
But in the state of New Jersey, for people who are...
You're going to vandalize Teslas?
Going to vandalize Teslas. Not only how are you going to handle that from a criminal angle, but will you investigate who is propping up these people, who is funding them?
Absolutely. I look, the great thing about this role is I am the one USA in New Jersey, but I have a huge office, and we have several offices, and I will 100% stand behind the fact that you do not get to target somebody who has served the country in a capacity that was asked by the president, that has sacrificed so much, and then go after. It's not even him. People's private property, vandalizing it, scaring people from driving their cars, unacceptable. If you are a terrorist, if you are a criminal, if you are going to hurt anybody, especially now in the state of New Jersey, I can tell you, I'm coming for you.
Thank you so much for joining us. If the audience wants to follow you, stay up to date with everything you're doing, where can they go to do that?
Alina Habba on everything, Twitter, Instagram. You can find me at my little check mark. My White House Twitter will probably be shut down soon, but
it's a good handle. Someone's got to take it.
It's not my main one. So obviously, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and all the social media platforms.
Amazing.
And True Social.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back on.
Thank you.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to the War Room. I guess maybe with questions like that, it's not hard to see why the Biden White House did not want anyone from War Room anywhere near the press office or any of their cabinet officials. We still have more content. We're going to go back talking all things government weaponization, even asking about dark money, Arabella advisors with May Mailman, Alex Pfeiffer, who's one of President Trump's deputy comms advisors. We're also going to talk to him about some of their unique comms strategies and how they're going to get those deportation numbers up. But in the meantime, of course, we're always grateful to birchgold.com/Bannon being the reason that we can bring you content like this. So you got to make sure you're texting Bannon to 989898 or checking out birchgold.com/Bannon. While you're at it, you also know we love the guys over at Tax Network USA. That's tnusa.com/Bannon. Or you can give a call, if you like to do that, to 1-800-958-1000. You can get a free consultation. And of course, Patriot Mobile, the guys who put on wonderful events down in Texas. If you didn't have a chance to go there, go talk to Glenn Story and the team. You know, you can always check out patriotmobile.com/Bannon. We're about to bounce back to some of the exclusive interviews, like I said, that we filmed yesterday. I think that one with Alina Habba is probably going to make some heads roll. But when I say heads roll, I probably mean illegal aliens, people who should be in jail, election fraudsters, and probably a lot of corrupt Democrats and establishment Republicans at that. In the meantime, let's go back to May Mailman and Alex Pfeiffer. More, like I said, exclusive content live from the White House.
But do you think that just revoking the security clearances and the government contracts, do you think that that is enough? Or are you telling our audience, who I can tell you certainly wants more, there's potentially more coming down the pipeline to really stop this from all happening again?
Without getting into the Department of Justice and potential announcements that you can see there, I will say that law firms themselves are only one piece of the puzzle in order to end the systemic weaponization of justice. Looking at the nonprofit sphere and the abuse of nonprofits in filtering foreign money. That's, for example, another thing that is criminal, but at least should be expensive because that's not nonprofit activity. So let's just go with nonprofits are one piece, law firms are one piece of the puzzle.
Okay, and you let us know when you have to go, because I know you're a busy gal, but our audience is extremely involved in this. Obviously, they were, like I said, on the receiving end with Steve having gone to prison, but there was a really interesting New York Times article a few weeks ago talking about how the administration was looking into potentially Arabella advisors and a lot of the dark money network groups on the left, 6030 Fund, New Venture, kind of compounded with the Act Blue, the potential for smurfing and the kind of weird donation scam that was going on allegedly. Is there I know the New York Times isn't always accurate, but are you guys talking about looking into that sort of dark money apparatus?
Yes. So I think we have two executive orders that already mention this a little bit, and I know that there are things in the works. So the ones that are working on this a little bit is the executive order that does mention Mark Elias, which talks about the nefarious actions, the disbarring actions of lawyers across the country, and it mentions things that should be done as far as dark money. But I would say also the election integrity executive order that we just signed this week, that one also has a section that says that you need to track money in American elections, including foreign money. And there's a continued effort on both election integrity and foreign money specifically. But I will say the Act Blue issue of money falling from the sky is something that I worked on actually when I was in the private sector, and it's a little bit of a tough nut to crack because we need the state attorney generals to go after this. This is happening to voters in their states. Most of the election laws are at the state level. So I will say, if you've got a state attorney general who is willing to help with election integrity, they have all of the authority in the states. They need to be starting their own investigations too, because there are 3 Democrat states who started taking actions against Win Red based on this exact thing. So why is it that the Democrat attorney generals are able to go after Win Red, but there's no Republicans that are willing? It doesn't make any sense. Call your attorney general.
Asymmetric warfare. We're not very good at staging it. I'm curious how you view DOGE as a force for sort of supplementing what you guys are doing, almost sort of backdooring potentially. I know there was discussion about turning the voter rolls over potentially for them to audit, but in that sort of space of the dark money, the foreign NGO, just very black box, maybe Pandora's box is a better way to describe it. But how has DOGE sort of augmented or helped what you guys are doing?
So DOGE is excellent. If you give DOGE a project and you say, so on our election...
Very high IQ, yes.
On our election integrity executive order, actually we put DOGE in there because there's such a problem with the voter rolls, right? You've got these states and they're supposed to have their voter rolls public, so you should actually be able to, if we, the government, can supply citizenship information, you should be able to do that quickly. So guess who we gave that job to? That's going to be DOGE. And of course, this is all public information. This is voter rolls that need to be public, so people freak out about that. All right. But
walk us one sec through that angle of attack, because it is so hypocritical, right? They say that, oh, you guys are not being transparent with DOGE or whatever. That's always their line. But these are probably the most like hidden, not like the 990 form. You can barely tell who's giving billions of dollars.
I know.
Yeah.
So for Americans want transparency. They want to be able to know how money's being spent. And so one of the great things about DOGE is that they really are and can be tech support. So one of the biggest challenges of my job sitting in the White House is I don't know what's happening in the agencies. If I want to say, hey, what is this grant being spent on, or what's this program doing, I got to call somebody who's got to call somebody who's got to call somebody who's got to call somebody who has to get a document and they can figure it out. What DOGE is trying to help do is make sure that we know where the money is being spent. And I think, DOGE is about cutting, and they want to eliminate this. I think there are other people who want to just move it, right? Like, instead of cutting it, why can't we harness it for good? Why can't we give it to people who are going to make the world a better place? And so that's a conversation. I think that's maybe the difference between pure DOGE and the White House, which is we want, and that's the conversation that's happening, and I think that's very healthy for the White House to have, which is you've got people who are just all about saving money, and then you've got people who are all about making sure that Americans are well provided for, and then those conversations are happening every single day in the White House.
Can you walk us through a little bit of that interplay? Because I think the media is always on you guys saying, oh, there's no transparency, Elon Musk is the real president, right? The one with the shadow cabinet, whatever, all the terms that I guess the left sort of coined. But what does that sort of, not rift, but the differing schools of thought on how to go after waste, fraud, and abuse, which I think you see, right? Can you repurpose the Department of Education, or do you just abolish it, right? It's sort of that essential question.
So in a sense, DOGE is the help, but the agencies and the White House are in charge. So for example, everybody knows that DOGE would like to save money by cutting a certain number of people who aren't doing anything in the agencies. We've got millions of government employees. What are most of them doing? And so, DOGE wants to cut those people, but whose responsibility is at the end of the day? That's going to be the cabinet secretary. And so the cabinet secretary, I think, feels, they receive that message and then they say, what can be cut? So today, people are working on where is their waste? Where is there one agency in your department that's doing the exact same job as another one, but it all needs to be going through? So that's the conversation that's happening, which is like, hey, you guys need to identify waste. You need to shrink your workforce to the minimum that's required. You need to close buildings that are unnecessary buildings. You need to do all these things. And then what happens next is the agency figures out what's good, what's bad, how can we consolidate? And it's kind of like, bringing the businessman in who's going to say, let's go, 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 and then bringing the lawyers in who are always like, let's go figure this out. And that's exactly how that's how a successful business, that's how a successful government operates and should operate.
It's, I guess, open discourse, which we know they don't particularly
I'll love to walk through this. And let's set the stage for what is the thing, if you're at home and you've been, if you've owned a TV set, every time you've watched Fox or whatever channel and it's flipped to commercial during election season, it's Republicans running ads about closing the border, right? That's all everyone talks about. And President Trump and this administration has actually closed the border. I mean, border crossings are down 99% in some areas. They're down so much so, and illegal immigrants are so afraid to cross our border that they're now turning around in Mexico. So I think the important thing for everyone to keep in mind is the securing of the border, the thing that people have campaigned on for years now, maybe decades, has actually been accomplished. And we have the 10th Mountain Division at the border. We're now building the wall. And so that key part has been accomplished. And then as it comes to deportations, as the president has said, as Tom Homan has said, as everyone has said, we're going to keep ramping up the numbers. We're never going to settle for what we have. And obviously we're also working with Congress to try and get more funding to increase ICE's capabilities. But, I think everyone's very proud of the work ICE is doing. They, this morning, an operation, led by the FBI and state and local officials arrested a top MS-13 leader in Virginia, just, 30 miles or so from here, who was an illegal immigrant, of course. So every single day, we're getting good numbers on ICE arresting criminals throughout the country, and those numbers are just continue to increase. So I think people should be very happy about where we are, and especially because I don't think anyone watching this could have predicted that within, months of the administration, we would basically halt border crossings. I just saw a stat actually that the other day we only had 66 gotaways at the border, and under Biden, I think sometimes we would have, close to 1,000 in a day. So, of gotaways. So the border numbers are tiny compared to where they were. And so I think that's
hundreds of thousands a month, and now they're down to essentially next year.
Yeah, I think it was like 10K a month in February. My numbers are a little off, give or take, but the numbers are tiny. And also, why would you want to cross here illegally? You're going to get deported.
Going to go to nice El Salvadorian.
It's not going to turn out well. If you're an illegal immigrant gang member here, if you're a member of MS-13 or Tren de Aragua, you can end up in Guantanamo Bay. This country was a safe space for illegal immigrant killers, and it is not anymore.
And walk us through some of the efforts to hamper, whether it's securing the border, the mass deportations. We obviously focus a lot on the sort of left-wing NGOs whose raison d'etre is to essentially keep the borders wide open. We know that they were sort of preemptively lobbying Joe Biden and his regime to get rid of the detention facilities, to allow the mass amount of people possible. And, they were hiring extra ICE agents, not to stop people, but to allow them to process more people. The city of New York was doing the same thing. Where has that sort of resistance, at least on the immigration front in particular, come from? Is it the Democratic Party? Is it more these NGOs? Is it people who are opposed to sort of the first administration, the divesting from ICE? What is that resistance?
Well, I think on the immigration front, political opponents, I think, like politicians, have been a bit more quiet than they have in the past because they realize the American public is on our side. So the Washington Post had this whole story basically saying, well, the problem with trying to advocate against President Trump's immigration policies is the majority of the country's with them. It's not just that, people always like to say, oh, well, you can just deport criminal illegal immigrants. Well, all illegal immigrants are criminals, and the majority of Americans support deporting all illegal immigrants. So I think the opposition you see, oftentimes from activist judges. The judge who recently put out this ridiculous comment saying Nazis were treated better than these Tren de Aragua. Yes, she's been a heavy. She's a heavy donor to Democrat politicians, and I might be breaking some news here for your War Room audience. She was a volunteer on the Obama campaign. Wow. Yeah.
Who do you think is the most radical judge that has weighed in?
I don't know if I have, but obviously Judge Boasberg, he might be the current prize winner.
We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
I want to pivot this a little to how I think the sort of riff, right? Obviously, Trump is, I guess I won't put words in his mouth, but I would say the Warren audience were very populist, nationalist. I know President Trump has described himself in some ways as that too, but the idea that now on the left, right, you have AOC and Bernie hitting, essentially it feels like the campaign trail, but holding these, what they allege to be huge rallies, saying that they're fighting oligarchy, they're putting families over billionaires. But then you go to AOC's website, and the first thing that you're hit with is a Know Your Rights campaign, how to avoid illegal aliens being deported, pro-open borders. How do you think that message, right, the idea that the left, the Democratic Party, that sort of more maybe populist wing of it says, oh, we're so pro-worker, we're so pro-American family, yet concurrently they're wanting to open the border wide open, right, to essentially the most depressive force?
Yeah, I think it's completely phony. I don't think we should give Bernie Sanders or AOC any credit of letting them have the populist mantle. Because, look, this weekend on ABC, Bernie Sanders was asked, what the president's doing well. And he was like, oh, he's doing well on immigration. Okay, then why during the 4 years under Joe Biden, when, Bernie, because the Senate has such a tight margin, he could have wielded his power. He never spoke up on immigration. He didn't. And in fact, in his last run for office, his platform spoke about abolishing ICE. So it's completely phony when these people like Bernie or AOC have these rallies and they talk about standing up for the American people. Standing up for the American people means standing up not only against crime, but also standing up for their wages. And study after study after study shows that the flood of illegal immigration drives down wages for American workers. And that's why when we're securing our border and stopping the flood in, so we're stopping and then we're pushing them out, we are going to help lift up wages in this country. And at the same time as we're doing that, we're creating good jobs for them by bringing manufacturing back. One thing I want to point your viewers to, and I don't know how much time I have, but during the... Oh, all right, I'll be here for hours. So during the first term, the Trump administration did a successful ICE raid on a chicken processing plant in Mississippi. And there was all this hysteria, like, oh, how dare he, arrest these illegal immigrant workers at a chicken plant. Well, the New York Times, of all places, did a story, basically a follow-up story on what happened to this chicken plant. And they found out that all the local residents in that Mississippi area, many of whom were, poor black Americans, citizens, they all got good-paying jobs at this poultry plant. And they were really happy. They were like, this is a great job. I'm getting paid more money than I got in my last job. So we're helping out Americans when we deport illegal immigrants. And so, Bernie Sanders or AOC, they talk a big game, but, their actions don't reflect it.
It was Obama's, I think, own Economic Review Commission that put out, it was in 2000, that large study saying that the most detrimental force to the wages of black Americans, it was illegal immigration and legal immigration to some extent, too. I want to pivot a little bit to how Congress is sort of augmenting, bolstering your fight on the immigration front, and then we'll get to the judge stuff, too. But how can our audience sort of help you guys get the necessary allies in Congress or where else? They love making phone calls. They're ready to dial. Who should they be talking to? What's the best way that they can get involved to sort of help you guys?
Look, I think the best thing is, speak your voice. And I think it's always going to be clear what the president supports on any issue. He doesn't really hide his feelings. He's going to be either telling it to the press in one of our many media availabilities or talking about it on Truth. So you're going to know where he stands, and you can, let your member or senator know you agree with him. I think it's also one thing that's important, I think, in general in politics is there's always too much emphasis sometimes on the stick and not the carrot. And I think we need to tell people when we think they're doing a good job. For example, one person did a great job, Brendan Gill, yesterday at the NPR hearing. Did you watch that? That was amazing. If you guys haven't seen Brendan Gill's NPR CEO questioning, that was amazing. Like, we need more, fun, cool questioning of these witnesses on the Hill because, these people don't come prepared, and we need to, hold their feet to the fire. And in the case of NPR, as the president made clear this morning, it needs to be defunded. I mean, NPR takes your money and it funds stuff like reports, I'm not kidding, on genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts. They did a report once that said doorway sizes, that is 100% true. They did a report on saying that doorway sizes are examples of latent fat phobia. Same with seatbelts. They did a report saying...
Administration be getting involved in this very critical space.
We're not going to get involved in the latent fat phobia space, but we will get involved in defunding NPR, of course, as the president stated. And NPR also funded an insane report that said fear of fatness is more unhealthy than fat itself. So your tax dollars are funding commentary that makes the American public less healthy.
I saw, too, they were already weighing in on SignalGate, trying to make the idea that a bunch of Europeans were really offended by the messages that J.D. Vance had said. And they won't stop. On the day of the hearing, they thought it was a good idea to put out that article. I want to pivot, though. You're talking about Brandon Gill. He has obviously put out, I believe, several or at least one articles of impeachment against certain judges that have really tried to, I would say, extra constitutionally interfere with everything that this president's trying to do. Can you sort of walk us through what the administration's approach? We were getting into it with May, and she was walking us through the sort of full spectrum dominance that you guys are using to tackle the lawfare. Going after the law firms are part of it. There's other stuff coming down the pipeline, but just help our audience understand. We know there's a hearing next week. Jim Jordan, Congress, is going to be talking about potentially maybe impeaching. I know they're pursuing other courses of action too, but what you think is sort of the angle of attack to ensure that his agenda can actually be implemented and not subverted by these radical unelected judges.
So the impeachment thing, that's sort of out of my purview. What I'm focused on, at least from my role, and one of the things I do here at the White House is help run our rapid response account, is educating people.
It's a great account. If people want to follow it, where can they go?
Rapid Response 47 is sort of educating the public on who these judges are. And we did many tweets and threads last week on how a lot of these judges themselves are former Democrat Party activists. Some of them hold leaderships in Democrat Party groups. Some of them are donors. So these are...
Their spouses are even worse.
And so these are very partisan people. So that's where my focus is, looking into these people and making sure people understand, you know, to look beyond the headline, that the people impacting our country, making it sound like, oh, they're just, they're just looking at things fairly, they're partisans.
And last question, because I think I'm being told we're about to wrap. Our audience loves the content on the Rapid Response 47 account. They love the memes, they love the videos, they love the music choices. Give us a little inside baseball. What's the team like? What's the sort of...
The team's great. I mean, I think generally the general attitude is, if you have a good idea, execute it. I think, here, what I love about working at the White House here with this team is there's very little micromanaging, and everyone trusts each other to sort of execute. And so I think the guys and girls here, when they have a creative idea, they execute it.
America's Voice family.
Are you on GETTR yet? No?
What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored, and it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the GETTR app right now. It's totally free. It's where I put up exclusively all of my content 24 hours a day. You want to know what Steve Bannon's thinking? Go to GETTR.
That's right. You can follow all of your favorites. Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec.
And so many more.
And the best part?
You can watch Real America's Voice right there.